What's up, everybody? Hi, welcome to the show. It's the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I'm here. I'm Jeff Gerstmann, and I am joined by the one, the only, Danny O'Dwyer. Danny, how's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm so bummed I don't get to hear the music.
I know it's playing. It's playing under you right now.
It's such a good track. It just makes me feel like I'm on an island. Like I'm just like I want a margarita. It always puts me in a good mood.
Extremely thought out, and definitely not something that got chosen the night before it all started. It all started.
It's a great track. You obviously, it spoke to you on some level. I do love how it is maybe the least video gamey music. I guess in some way it's kind of like Yoshi's Island vibes or something. But
sure,
it just feels like. It just feels like a good time, and that's what the Jeff Gerstmann experience is all about.
That's exactly. I'm here to have a good time and a long time. That's our promise here. Of course, if you are looking for an ad-free version of the show, you want to back the whole keep this whole train rolling, you go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann or enjoyyourgaming.com if you don't like spelling my last name, and you can sign up, get some bonus content over there. The Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame. You can join the advisory panel, hop on the Discord. We are having a nightmare of a time over there on the Discord all the time, especially if you like to talk about wrestling or anime or video games.
That's the three pillars of the internet right there.
That's right. Yeah. We've left off the fourth. We don't have a dedicated like Marvel Universe channel yet, but that's good. That's who knows. That's scary. That's going to creep up on us any day now.
You got to get down with the kids. Have you felt yourself making content for the kids? Have you felt yourself changing your core competencies? I do feel like, anime, I don't know, wrestling, video games, and maybe hip hop. Are those right. The three Jeff Gerstmann pillars? Core competencies?
Yeah, those are probably the big ones, and we've definitely touched on all of them here a little bit over the months. No, I don't know that I feel like I just like doing dumb shit. Like there are a lot of people like, oh man, TikTok, that's for kids. Like, no, not, I mean, like, yes, but I also like just how fucking dumb TikTok is. And so like people seem surprised when I say like, oh yeah, and I blow an hour on TikTok every day looking at dumb videos and all this other stuff. It's it's like I don't watch television, but I do devote 45 minutes to like scrolling through TikTok videos and getting angry at something. There was one, so this happens. I find this video comes across, I don't know, once a month or something like that, where it's like it's some video game guy and God, but hey, they're doing the thing or whatever, but it's like some video maker. And obviously they're like in their 20s or something, and they're like, did you know if you hold down A and press start, you can continue with Super Mario Brothers? And every time I come across it, my brain fucking snaps because I'm just like, Jesus Christ, yes, I fucking knew that. Like, God damn it, I knew that. Like, yeah, like that was inescapable information.
There's a weird emerging economy of it's the mid-20s gamer who did not play classic PC games and now suddenly like has this amazing affinity for like late 90s, early aughts like first-person games and PC games. Like this, it's like the nostalgia of the NES era or something. But like because all these kids grow up playing like PC games, like lots of the Minecraft and Roblox generation. So like it's like a second wave of Half-Life fans and like Quake and like Team Fortress. There's all these games that they like either haven't played or have played a little bit of, and there's all these fandoms around them. It's really interesting to me. Like Tyler McVicker, actually, who runs that YouTube channel, the Valve News Network, I think was that. Yeah, Tyler now he's sort of like more openly branded, but like he's young. Like he didn't play these games, like a lot of these games, and he's on the older edge of that. But there's like people who are younger than him who have even less sort of in the moment experience, but like they pray at the altar of like PC games.
Well, it's weird because it's almost like there's this thing of like you get a lot of people who played a lot of Overwatch, and then when Overwatch kind of went south, they're like, well, what else is there? They're like, well, what is Team Fortress 2? And they play it and go, oh, holy shit! Like this is the thing that when they made Overwatch, this is one of the things they were looking, or whatever.
This and Action Quake, and,
right? Well, man.
But it's like a sprinkling of all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah,
that's the community I want to get into, is the community that is still playing Action Quake and Action Half-Life and stuff like that, because every time I go looking for those specific mods, I always have trouble finding them in a reliable place. And then from there, it's like, I got to find a server that's actually running the stuff. And then I know a lot of those communities moved on to another mod that had it had a different name.
Right.
But it was the same concept of like, what if we made John Woo shooting in this? And I just want to play some Jailbreak, and I want to play some action Half-Life, or action Quake is acceptable.
I always lament I played a lot of Counter-Strike, and I played a lot of CS Source, and I never really got into Go, which is funny because like Go was like an old game now, but like it does, feels to me like Source is still a new game. But I got way into surf maps, and I loved doing surf, and got way into it in college. And then we were editing a video. Jesse, who produces our podcast, and he's doing some video stuff for us. He's producing a video for us on Neon White, and I got the first edit of it, and it had a bunch of, it was like the developer talking about like Ben Esposito talking about inspirations and stuff, and it was all this Counter-Strike source surf map footage, and I was like, oh yeah, that's totally what that game is. Right. Neon White is a surf map game. Yeah, I never clicked. It's just you're not going down. You're kind of just going up and around.
Which is weird because I feel like anytime. So I never was able. I have not grasped how to play surf maps. Like I just something about the movement, something about the concept of how you get going. Like I'm never able to actually make it happen out of the gate. And I'm just like every time I accidentally end up on a surf map, just like server hopping or something, I was like, well, okay, I'm gonna try it. And I watch these people do it over and over again. I'm like, do I need to move diagonally? Hang on, what do I?
I know, it's like in my head, it's like down and in, down and in, down and in, down and in. But it's also the angle. It's like snowboarding. It's like if you don't have the right angle, you're never gonna get the momentum to make the thing stick properly. It's all the people that when they get the launch are able to like move in the air and that stuff. Those people are like gods to me.
Still, they have not been bested. I don't think I really got into Counter-Strike until Go came out.
Oh, cool.
And even then I didn't really get that into it, but it was just like it became something that I kept installed, and I would just go and usually just play gun game. And
so good.
And not go disarm bombs or anything that took any actual skill or strategy. And just like engage with the shooting end of it or whatever. But yeah, that became a game that is just in my rotation of games that I always have installed. CSGO somehow became one of them. And I never would have thought that would be the case. But yeah, it is definitely strange how like audiences, and we were talking about it a couple weeks ago with like music, and how like the ability to have decades of music at your fingertips has led to the kids having really weird access to a lot of really weird songs all the time. And again, talk about TikTok, like you just see weird old songs getting weird fucked up remixes and then blowing up on TikTok for a week and a half and then vanishing again and all this other stuff. But I guess like games, you kind of end up in a similar situation because so many of those things are still available one way or the other. But yeah, so my brain snapped when I saw this guy make with his like hold A and press start, and like like whatever. It's like, of course he's 20 something or whatever. So I literally like stitched it and made like and deliberately went out in my garage, because whenever there's an angry old man on TikTok, he's always in a garage, and I'm like, well, I got to get out there and fucking.
He's got to get away from his wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And for me, it was
are you complaining about the video games again?
Shut up and give me my dinner. Anyway, yeah, definitely. And so like the natural reaction is there are a couple of people who are just like, you're just old. And I'm like, yes, that's the point. That's the point. Yes, that is the point of this video. Congratulations. But yeah, just real.
And Fred Durst 2000 on that as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, they should know the energy. Although I bet there's a lot of people who like see Fred Durst on stage now and think there was people who thought that was real when he did the whole old man thing. Like he is now that, and not that he is in a costume and has always been in a costume. That, like, that's like going back.
Yes.
Yeah, to like whatever $3 bills, y'all.
Of
like,
course,
that is,
the costume at first was just the baseball hat, and then it evolved from there. Yeah, I don't know. That's it's just fascinating stuff, especially with emulation making so many of those games so widely available to people, decades after their release or whatever. You just end up with a lot of really weird.
Just Steam as well. Like, just
of course. Yeah. Just
like
even
an old game on Steam is like Half-Life came out in 2004, Half-Life 2, right? So like, that's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah. And honestly, like they don't, like the Call of Duty campaign will drop this week. It's not to say that there's like no shooter campaigns anymore, but there kind of aren't the way that Half-Life 2 was.
Right.
Like, there haven't been like a lengthy shooter campaign that wasn't just like here's something for you to blast through, but really it's a multiplayer game. I mean, I guess, the kind of revival of with stuff like Proteus and stuff like those are obviously, you have campaigns there. But
Titanfall 2 is still the closest one.
Is that the last truly great?
That's what? That's 7 years ago, is it? Is that 2017 or 16 or something? Yeah. I replayed Portal 2 recently on a Steam Deck because I was like, because now I'm entering this phase of, it's been a while since I played some of these.
Right.
Like, I replay Half-Life 1 and 2 almost every year, but like Portal 2, I hadn't played that. I don't think I've been playing a bunch of The Last of Us Part 2 recently, just because it's been a little while. I'm just gonna go give it a go again. But the whole like throwback shooter, like the Gloomwoods of the world, and maybe Scorn to a certain degree, but like these sort of like I don't know, like ImSim, but also kind of like Quake looking, or what was the one? What was that crazy? The Devil Daggers guy made the new, what's it called again?
Oh, Demon.
Oh my god,
Hyper Demon.
Hyper Demon.
Dude.
Yeah, that thing is awesome. Like, I'm interested in. It's almost like It's like whenever there are like TV shows now that take place in the 80s, and it's like that's not really the 80s, but it's like how we remember, or like that's how the 80s would look now. Like, I like the modern, like a game like Gloomwood never gets made in whatever 1998 or something. It's too open and big and has too many systems in it. But
like the hardware never would have done it. But
exactly, But it's like,
or like Devil Daggers would never have run on a real PlayStation. Like, you could probably do some version of it that maybe you could, but like the kinetic, just the movement of all that stuff, you probably would not be able to do.
Totally.
Yeah, that stuff's super fun. Why don't we take a quick break and we'll get back and we'll talk about some video games, I guess. You got to keep cool at night. This is the thing. If you get too hot at night, it does not go well. You do not sleep well. You do not get a good night's sleep. You need something that is going to keep you nice and cool, not sweaty and sticky. And that is what Miracle Brand has to offer. Self-cooling bed sheets that help you stay comfortable all night long. How do they do it? Silver-infused fabrics that were originally developed by NASA. These Miracle Brand sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long so you get better sleep every night. And they're self-cleaning. They're infused with natural silver that prevents 99.9% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresher 3 times longer than other sheets. So no more weird stink, Miracle sheets are also luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. The sheets use a premium 500 thread count sateen weave that's made with USA grown Supima cotton, which is one of the highest quality cottons in the world. These sheets are better for your skin. Keep all that bacteria off of your sheets and thus off of your skin. Clean sheets means less bacteria to clog your pores and fewer breakouts and skin problems. Now, you want in? You want to get in? You want to know how to get in? Of course you do. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff to try it today. We've got a special deal. Be sure to use the promo code Jeff at checkout to save 40% and get 3 free towels. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Brand. Go to trymiracle.com/Jeff and use the code Jeff to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/Jeff. And thanks to Miracle Brand for sponsoring the episode. All right, we're back. I'm just speak for me. Make sure that I can hear you.
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Again, we're joined by Daniel Dwyer of No Clip, Beef OBrady himself, in the building. It's weird living on the other side of that Del Taco.
Oh, right. Yeah, for sure. I was just there. I've driven up and down to LA so often recently. and it's still the go-to. It's a Del Taco. I usually have a bunch of camera equipment in my Jeep, so it is a place where I can park usually and still have eyes on the car.
Yeah.
So it's a go, and there's enough footfall there. Because like that's a $15,000 camera, Jeff. I don't need that thing getting stolen out the back of a car.
No, that's oh geez. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good time. Is that the one that has there's one of them that has a fun house kind of looking thing as well. Is that one? That's that one.
That one's got a little broken down fun house kind of thing. And it's attached to that truck stop. So like if you get out there in the truck stop area, you hear like, you know, truckers getting their like your shower stall number 4 is ready for you and all that other stuff.
Yes.
So yeah, you could stop. You know, if you felt comfortable leaving the cameras for a little bit longer, you could take a shower on your drive down. That'd be real comfy.
Go play in the play place.
Yeah.
Grab some cheap burritos and
get back on the road. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. I mean, so the other weird thing that happened is like now I live, let's say 3 minutes away from a Del Taco.
Oh, dangerous. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't in Petaluma? What's the... Because now that's the other thing. I live in Novato now.
Right,
so
yes.
Like my kid goes to school in Petaluma. So I'm up there like multiple times a week.
Crazy.
I went to that bowling alley.
Yep.
I went to on the south side of town. I joined like a Novato dads group to meet dads, meet hot dads like myself.
Yeah.
And the first night out we went to, which says a lot about Novato, that the first night out on the Novato dads group was to Petaluma.
I'm trying to think what is in Novato, and because like I lived right there, one town away from Novato, but we always went to Santa Rosa. You never went south. You never went south. There was a, you know, when I was in high school, there was a place, I think it was called Watts Music, and they had a bunch of indie rap tapes and like really like local Bay Area rap tapes. And I remember going there and just like randomly going like, yes, Ill-Mannered Posse. We need that one. Who are these guys? They're from San Francisco. Great. And like falling in love with a bunch of local rap groups from like driving to Novato to buy tapes. But is that on the main street? Because there is a vinyl store that's been there for like 50 years. It's got to be. Yeah. If it's still there, that's probably what it was. But
and they're like legit. Like they've been selling vinyl. Like I was talking to the guy and he was like, you know, all these new vinyl shops who come in on the craze, and we were here during the bad days, and you know. All that sort of stuff, and
I
went in and bought a Tool album off him because I was like, support this dude.
Yeah,
that must be that. Yeah, so that's it, just a vinyl shop.
That's the only thing I can think of that was in Novato. I mean, there's a gas station. You know, like I would stop and get gas because it was kind of like the last gas before before Petaluma or whatever. So sometimes that'd be a good place to stop. But like. Yeah, I guess I'm not too surprised that you are trekking up to Petaluma to go bowling and stuff
Dude,
like that.
That bowling alley is great. That bowling alley is like what I imagine. Like, I know there's a certain amount of like Americana when it comes to Petaluma. I watched American Graffiti earlier this year. We did a Shift F1 podcast about it just for fun. It was but that bowling alley looks like, if I was to imagine American bowling alley in my head, it would be that place. Like it is like there's like 40 lanes. We were like, you know, throwing stuff and bumbling. There was a group of dudes beside us who were just like doing all that crazy wrist shit and making it like spin both ways.
Yeah.
But they were drinking too. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like they were good, but they weren't like serious.
It was definitely a place that, you know, when you could still smoke inside, that was a place to do it. And there's a little bar in the back.
Yeah.
And
a carpet. It's like one of those bars. Yeah.
They used to have a tapper machine in that bar.
Oh, cool.
And so before I was 21, I would always like, I want to get in there, but I couldn't do it. And then eventually I was 21 and I could go play the tapper machine. And yeah, that place, they have like the right kind of shitty food. They have the right kind of, you know, strong drinks, or at least they used to. I don't know if they still do, but
they'll sell you a pitcher of Lagunitas, which is like, that's,
oh sure, yeah,
you know, that'll do it for you.
Yeah. Too fancy.
If you forget it's Lagunitas,
too fancy. Yeah,
that's a good point.
Yeah, but so they used to, so their arcade used to be on the other side, you know. So now when you walk, this is important information for everyone. When you walk in now, the arcade stuff is on the right. It used to be on the left and right around the corner, and so that was where, especially because the bowling alley is 24 hours. Like if you were just
It's
awake,
24 hours?
I don't think it is anymore, but it was.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So if you were just like, and this is the era that it was, but if you were like, I want to play some Street Fighter Alpha right now, some Alpha 1,
4 a.m.
Yeah, you could go do that. And I did on multiple occasions. You know, you'd be online, you'd see one of your other friends, local friends up, you'd be like, dude, let's go play some Mortal Kombat 3 right now. Like, yeah, okay. And you would meet up at the bowling alley and then go to Lions or something. One of, you know, well, the Denny's is closed now. I don't even know what's there for 24-hour shitty diner food.
Yeah, there's not much around there.
Yeah.
I didn't see myself. It's not that far from downtown. I went to that game stores as Nostalgia Alley. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Nostalgia Alley. Yeah,
they seem like righteous dudes. That seems like a good spot. They seem all right.
Yeah, I imagine it's probably a tough road for them because they got like really good prime location right in the middle of downtown Petaluma, and I'm sure that's not cheap. But like, yeah, I bought.
Pandemic happened.
Yes, but yeah, I randomly, like right before we moved, I was like, I need to get over there and buy some stuff and bought a few more games. But I bought like a PS2 copy of Enter the Matrix.
Oh,
from there recently and a couple of other things. So, you know, it was just, it's hard, you know, and there's a few similar stores down here that I haven't gone to yet. But like the thing I found going to a lot of these smaller shops is like they just don't have stuff that's like super weird. And now I'm so far down that rabbit hole that the only thing I'm interested in seeing is like, you got any Japanese 3DO games? You know, just like fucking, you know, terrible shit that like they're never gonna have because they know they'll never sell it because people walking into that store are just like, you got the Tony Hawk game I played when I was a kid. You got Super Mario Brothers, you know, like
Donkey Kong 64.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so they stock those kinds of classics. And so like I'm sitting here with like 70 Super Famicom horse racing games and all this other bullshit that I'm like, I need to sell these to somebody. And like I don't know that I'm gonna have an easy time doing it.
I had the exact same experience when I went to not this time, the previous time I was in LA, I went to, I forget the name of the store, but there's an indie store in LA that there was two of them, and I went to both, and I literally, like you said, I went in and nothing was weird enough, and then I saw a 3DO copy of Soccer Kid.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I didn't even know this existed.
That was the first platform I ever saw that on.
Oh
yeah,
I guess I guess it makes sense because Amiga. Well, I guess you had an Amiga, right?
Yeah,
but Amiga wasn't like,
it wasn't really a big. Yeah, I wasn't really playing a lot of games on it because I just didn't have access because I didn't know anyone else who had an Amiga,
right?
So I couldn't get any copies of games from them. So
did you have a 3DO though? Because those are expensive.
No, not until, I mean, I'll say like relatively recently, like over the last 5-10 years, I finally bought a 3DO, and now I suddenly have two of them, and I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm getting all set up here to capture 3DO games because I bought a 3DO ODE, an optical drive emulator. And so that's the thing. It's an external device. They make an internal one as well, but it plugs into the expansion port, and you can plug in a USB drive or an SD card with all your games on it, and it will just load them from there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put the entire 3DO library onto a USB stick, and then, I don't know.
How big is the library even?
I can tell you. I think it's like 300 gigs. 300 gigs.
No, how many games I want to know.
Oh, okay. That I can definitely tell you. Hang on.
So that's more than I would have thought, though, because like an average, what's the max on a
640.
CD?
640 megs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. G drive.
We're doing a documentary on Crystal Dynamics, so obviously 3DO comes up. I interviewed Strez Zelnick 3 weeks ago and asked him about going all in on 3DO. Apparently that was one of the first things he did when he got there was, we need to
I'm going to say
diversify.
624-ish games for the 3DO. That's including a lot of demo discs and things like multi-region and stuff like that. Multi-disc games are going to count twice there. That's where I'm sitting at anyway. So somewhere in that.
Still a decent amount.
Yeah.
So is there any exclusives? I know games like Gex came out on it first, but like, was there any? Like everything probably eventually came out on like PlayStation.
Anything worth a shit did. I remember Return Fire being one of the big 3DO games that I cared about when it was newish, and then that came out on PlayStation and everywhere else. I'm sure that there's some, especially like some of the stuff that came out in Japan is just, there's a bunch of weird stuff. Yeah. So Crystal Dynamics. I remember. So Geronimo Barraro, who formerly of Rockstar, he got his start. Or I don't know. He did not get his start there, but he was there for a while.
He was quite, and he was young. Yeah, he came up in our research.
Okay.
Stuff.
Yeah. And I remember talking to him about the Samurai Showdown port that they did for 3DO. And he was just like, yeah, we had a Neo Geo cabinet in the office and we really loved that game. And we were like, why don't we port this to 3DO? And so we did. And
that's wild.
It's just like such a crazy, when you think about how games are generally made nowadays, the idea that they were just like, we're just a big fan of this fucking game. It's like the only other example I can think of that exact thing is Gearbox when they did Samba de Amigo for the Wii. I remember that was their story, at least. They were just like, we just fucking love. There was a team of us here that loved Samba de Amigo, and we really wanted to like do this, and so
that's bizarre.
So we did, and that's just a really crazy. I'm trying to think of that. When did that come out? Yeah.
I guess if you're, in a weird way, it's like Crystal. I can imagine it because like just even a porting that was going on there. But for Gearbox, that seems. I guess Gearbox have had a publishing. They have that big publishing arm in San Francisco for a long time.
Remember, this was for the original Wii. This is like 08 or something. A long time
ago,
so this is not the Gearbox of today.
So they just made Borderlands or something.
Right. Yeah. And so it was just like they were just
that's very strange.
Yeah. But to hear them tell it was just a super passion project for them that they were very passionate about, which I get it. I'm passionate about Samba de Amigo. It's a fucking awesome game. The Wii theoretically could do it, so why wouldn't you? Yeah. Anyway, when we talk about some slightly modern games,
do we have to?
I mean, the first one I'm going to talk about here is it's Atari Mania.
Okay, wow, okay, sure.
Yeah.
A nice bridge between eras. Yeah.
Atari Mania came out on Steam. This game got announced a while ago, and then I immediately forgot about it. This is basically a WarioWare-esque game built on Atari 2600 games.
Okay.
And Atari 2600 concepts. And I don't think it's very good. But so it's got a bit of a story where you're like walking around as a caretaker of an Atari museum, and there's some dead pixels stealing Bentley Bear out of the Crystal Castles machine and outlaw. And so it's just, it's and they use that to kind of be like, oh, all the games are getting jumbled up. And so you end up with like, you're flying the ship from asteroids through a level from Sword Quest while Pong paddles or, so they kind of try to build a bunch of WarioWare-like micro games kind of around Outlaw and Video Olympics and all these different old Atari games.
It doesn't look like an Atari game. It's like cartoony.
So they updated the graphics. It's not like they're emulating these old games or anything crazy like that. They updated all the graphics, and so it's like you look at it and go like, yeah, okay, that's a cowboy. It looks like the guy from Outlaw. But I think I just would want the graphics of the original games and just be like, yeah, no, it's Outlaw, it's this, it's that, and all that sort of stuff. And so it's kind of a weird.
It's expensive too, Jeff. It's $25.
Yeah,
I don't know. That feels expensive, at least for when the word Atari is stuck onto something.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting to pay much.
Yes. It's a weird project. Well, and like it's one of those things on paper. You're like, oh, of course. Like, yes, the Atari library mashed up into WarioWare style, jumbled up weird games. Like, I bet you could do something really fun with that. But I went through like kind of the first 3 or 4 sets of levels and really just got bored of it. And there's kind of some puzzle solving in the overworld that you're doing because you're kind of building an inventory. It was like, now you have a grappling hook so you can get over here and get to this next set of levels. And the story is kind of it's just there's a lot of window dressing that probably doesn't really need to be there and all that sort of stuff. But it's a cool idea. But yes, between the price tag and just I just don't think they execute as well on it as I would have liked. I'm gonna maybe say to people, maybe take a pass on that, but I probably will still stream some of it at one point because it is at least an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's almost a shame because it kind of does look like at least like it's it's not. That's kind of an interest. I've never seen that before necessarily. Like a sort of a mashup game based. That's like I think the new graphics is kind of the thing that makes me go, but also it's like, oh, I guess there was an opportunity like that. That would be cool. I would love to see a modern looking or slightly more contemporary looking version of games that I loved playing if it looked good and they played well, but maybe it just didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and again, since it's like a WarioWare game, these are things that are going on for like 8 seconds, you know, and you're like, okay. Yeah. So it's not even like fully fledged. You're not like playing Asteroids. You're controlling the cowboy from Outlaw, but there are asteroids in the world. And then the millipede from Millipede is there too. You know, it's just like kind of weird crossover-y kind of stuff that just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't do as much. I feel like no one's really done, very few people have done really great WarioWare style games other than Nintendo.
Right. Yeah.
I think like, was it Frobisher Says for the Vita?
Oh yeah, I liked it, but it's hard to play those games for like long periods of time. Like they're such like, I don't know, I don't want to say party games, but like they're kind of that way. Like, oh, let's play, you know, I never felt compelled to go back and play Frobisher Says.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, it is still a Vita game, so no one felt compelled to go back and play it. But like, there was stuff like Atari even did the one called Hot Pixel, like years ago. I think it was like a PSP game that no one played but me. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a handful of other things, and McPixel. Yeah, McPixel is a great game.
Actually,
that's kind of a similar concept. Like McPixel just has a really good sense of humor to it, and that really.
I've never considered that to be a WarioWare game, but
but it kind of is.
But it is. Yeah.
I
guess it's hard because it's like you have to make like multiple. Like it makes sense with an Atari thing, at least where the known quantities, you can kind of just like maybe even the player maybe also has an idea of like, oh, it's a cowboy I shoot and it's a millipede, I think. But it's wild how like it's so like in the WarioWare games, like they literally the first screen is them telling you what to do.
Right.
Like so it must be really difficult to make dozens of games with their own art. Everything's bespoke and they last for a couple of seconds. Like maybe it makes sense that only like big companies that can throw a bit of budget at that, you know, are able to land us because
go and make 80 different mechanics that all feel at least okay, if not great. And
I doubt Atari is throwing money at this thing. You know what I mean? So the developers probably don't have like all that much resources to come up with everything.
Yeah, I think it was a French team that I was not familiar with.
Okay.
But yeah, it's it's neat that it came out. I don't know, like I'm all in on that Atari 50 collection from the sounds of it. From the more they talk about that, and seeing some of the pictures of it coming out of the Portland Expo that happened over the weekend and stuff, like I don't know, the digital Eclipse.
Well, that's the
seems
thing.
Like they know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, well, that's an example of somebody getting it who you know, who you can kind of trust will do the job. You know.
Yeah. I don't think Mike Micah would allow a shitty version of Star Raiders to exist.
Yeah,
and so
he wouldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
Especially since Drew went over there, he's been really like, you know, just like, well, I guess I can never tell. Other Ocean Digital Eclipse, it's like, which is, you know, where's the overlap? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
But
whatever.
Yeah.
He's over there. They're doing their thing.
Yeah. They're
making Garbage Pail Kid games or whatever.
Sure. Why not?
Documentaries. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. That's a bunch of weird nonsense. You've been playing. You've been playing some Vampire Survivor. Just got to get it in before it goes 1.0, huh?
I know, before that $5 price hike.
Yeah.
Up to $5 or whatever.
Yeah.
That game, man. That game was good fun. What happened was I played Portal 2 start to finish on Steam Deck, because all I've been playing on Steam Deck was like kind of smaller, like indie flavor, like Cult of the Lamb, and I was like, I want to try play a shooter on this, and Portal 2 seemed like a good fit because it does a lot of like kind of not auto aiming, but like, you know, puts the portals where you meant to put them, not where you exactly shot. And there's a little bit of movement, whereas I'm not going to be playing Half-Life 2 on the Steam Deck. It just doesn't have the accuracy on the pad required really for those types of games. So after I'd done that, I played Portal 2 through, and it was awesome, and it ran really well on deck. I was like, okay, now I need to go lo-fi again, and I hadn't played Vampire Survivor on it. And Frank over at NoClip was talking about it, so I was like, all right, I'm going to give it an hour. It'll probably get its teeth in, and then no pun intended, and then I'll be able to keep playing it. And I'm like 30 hours now of this stupid ass passive game. It's so smart. It's so silly and smart, and like the music is fun, and it's just like they do the good job of making you want to play with the people you don't want to play with and unlock everything. It's just one of those unlock shit games that I really like, and it's a good podcast game too. You know,
definitely. Yeah, I think when they go 1.0, they have some kind of Twitch integration. I don't know. Awesome. I don't know what that's going to be.
It's like all one dude too. We're trying to see if we can do something with them as well on NoClip, but I think it'd be because it's such a weird. Everything about it's weird. Like the fact that it was sold for. I think I bought it for $2, maybe. I think, and then it went to $3. I think, and then they shot it up to $5, and they were like tweeting about it, like, "Get it now while it's cheap. We're going to $5.
We're going to $5 tomorrow. Get it while you can." Like, it's. But I'm sure with the number of copies, because that thing's also on Xbox. It launched in Game Pass.
Wow.
So
God, I didn't know that.
So they got some Game Pass money on top of that.
Right.
Yeah. And then it's been the game. Like I'm really gonna be curious how like Game of the Year voting goes this year, because I think it's gonna be one of those years. I think all year long it's been
Elden Ring.
Right? Yeah, that it's been like, well, Elden Ring is just gonna walk away with it at most outlets because it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of the obvious choice or whatever. But I think the actual true, if we really look inside ourselves and look inside our souls, Vampire Survivor fucking blows that thing out of the water.
It's gonna be one of those like outlets will like, we need to make like a best indie or we need to give it its dues. It's like Elden Ring's gonna win because everyone will be angry if we pick something else, but what'll we call it? Best newcomer, best.
We've taken to calling them auto survival shooters around here, ASS games, and
ASS games.
And that's done pretty well.
I like that.
But it's like I'm playing Survivor IO on my phone, and that's one of those. And there's so many different. I'm playing Magic Survival on I have an Android burner phone. That I've been playing that on there because that is apparently one of the games that inspired all this stuff, including Vampire Survivor. So it's just I don't know. And seeing it's very fascinating looking at a lot in Hollow Cure, and there was a game called Hentai Survivors on Steam that really sucks. And it's been fascinating to look at like the variety here. There's this game called Project Lazarus that's a mech game that's one of these that's actually pretty good. And watching the different takes on it, and watching people that like clearly understand what makes Vampire Survivors great, and being able to kind of leverage that and have their own spin on it, and then like developers who just simply don't understand that at all, and they're just like, fuck it, let's cash in, and they make all the wrong choices on weapons and upgrades, like their whole system is built wrong, and you're like, this is fucking terrible. And so it really made me appreciate Vampire Survivors that much more, because once you start playing a lot of bad versions of it, you're like, man, there's so much nuance to this game. There's so much depth to this game. There's so many things to unlock and discover. And some of these other games just straight up do not have that.
It makes sense, right? Because it looks on the face of it like the development cost to entry on something like that is fairly low, because it's like tile based, 2D, the camera sticks to the player, like the AI is dumb. It's but one of the things that I'm like fascinated by it actually is like the readability on that game. I don't know what they did to dial that in, but when you have all that stuff going on, and for you still to grok what's going on, and that the hitboxes feel right, and the movement feels right, and you're not getting overwhelmed, and like you said, the fine-tuning of all the power-ups, and like which ones work against which enemies, and which one, and the fucked up things that happen to them when you start getting those like weird like cross evolutions, or you upgrade one to the top, and what that does, like it's it's no doubt. I love all these weird subgenres that pop up. The weirdest one to me is all the like dad-based dating games that came out after Dream Daddy, because that was like so niche. Like it's not like they invented the what do you call it, visual novel or anything like those existed, but specifically dad-based.
This game's also about dads. Like that was the message they took away from Dream Daddy. Like, well, how can we really cash in on this? Well, more dad games, I guess. Yeah. And like just a really weird way for it to go.
It's awesome, but it's like they all have the same like looking key art. Like they look exactly like
right.
Yeah. Whatever.
And then you've been playing a little bit of Uncharted I assume, have you been playing this on the PC or?
Am I right? Is this?
I think reviews might. It's out tomorrow.
Reviews have gone up.
I think reviews. I think it's out. It is out tomorrow. I don't know.
I think Embargo Day was today.
I
have it on the calendar. Embargo Day.
Yes, I'm seeing reviews hitting as of 2 hours ago. So
okay,
I think you're okay.
Okay, PC.
Talk about this collection of old games that was already released on console is now being re-released on the PC.
Yeah. So my only interesting take on this, I haven't played all that much of it, but I decided to run it on Steam Deck because I thought that's the weirdest sort of niggle to this is let's play these games on Steam, and they run good,
right?
They look good, they feel good. The Steam Deck sounds like a helicopter because it's just like, or maybe it's just because I've gone from playing Vampire Survivors and my expectations of how loud the console should be is like on one end of the spectrum.
Sure.
But yeah, that's the only thing. If so, wear a pair of headphones maybe when you're playing it. But it's neat. It's interesting playing that game. Like the shooting works even though the screen is small.
Mm-hmm.
It looks so cinematic. Like I think it's kind of a bummer playing on Steam Deck because like you kind of like the whole reason to play that game on PC is to have it cranked up in 4K and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But it runs, which is pretty cool. So I was happy to do that. I've just been on like a weird like Naughty Dog kick because they had the Last of Us Part 1 thing,
right.
the remake, and I've been replaying Part 2 now because I played a bunch of Part 1. So I've just been in that space, and it just reminds me of like nobody makes games like they make. Like I'm not sure if there'd be much temperament for a lot of these types of games because they are so cinematic and like they do a lot of work to make them not feel particularly linear. Or I've gone to the part in The Last of Us Part 2 where you get to Seattle and you have that sort of open area that's by the convention center, that
right.
weird bit where you're just like and I was like, oh yeah, this was neat. Or like there's a couple of parts and the last Uncharted that kind of get that, remember the Jeep part or whatever where you've got that open, like, and it's like, oh yeah, they get a little bit open here. But it is crazy how, like, I don't know, just the amount of specificity they have with, like, if you use a weapon in one part, the animations, they're just so specific and they're so cinematic.
There's a
really hard to make.
A really crazy attention to detail with their stuff. That I think for me, I just wish that I enjoyed playing those games more than I do. Like even, the Uncharted games they're cover shooters. They're nothing fancy, but then I like plenty of cover shooters, but it's just, I think Uncharted 2 is kind of the point where I kind of checked out and I was like, no, this is a fun game. I don't like the way that they do cover shooting for whatever reason. And I can't quite pin that down, but yeah, I get what you're saying with the Steam Deck. I think that's been, so, a little behind the scenes, a lot of companies will ask you what version of a game you want when it comes time to send out review copies or something like that. And typically because I can get my hands on a PC version of a game, no problem, once it's out. But so usually I will end up asking for a console version of the game because I'm kind of curious about like, well, how especially because I just feel like I haven't really seen how PS5 really runs a lot of third-party games, and so that's still something fascinating. But now the Steam Deck has entered into that equation. It's like now I really want to know how this runs on Steam Deck, and it's also like a weird thrill to be like, I'm going to try and install this weird beta branch of this game I have access to on my Steam Deck and see what happens. Like that's been weirdly fun too. So that's that Uncharted port I believe is an Iron Galaxy joint.
Yes, I think you're right. Yes, I remember I saw the logo at the top. So
but yeah,
so
I'm probably gonna
send to Dave Lang.
Right, exactly. Yes, and you unlock Nathan Drake in Rumbleverse and and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, I'm probably gonna install that on my Steam Deck, even though, like I said, I'm not like a massive Uncharted fan, but I just want to see it.
It's like 140 gigs, I think, as well. So you gotta get that dock or just sit your Steam Deck beside your router or whatever.
Right. So I ended up buying the big Steam Deck, the 512, and then I bought a 1 terabyte SD card for it, and so
I need to do because mine gets full. everything gets full now. My PS5, I'm constantly deleting stuff just to fit shit on it.
So my PS5, I went and installed a 1 terabyte drive into the internal, where they allow for the expansion, and then I also have an external 1 terabyte that PS4 games run off of.
Yeah. I have that for the PS4 ones, but that's becoming less and less of a problem now. Is that like, because there's fewer of those games that I'm installing as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I wish I could put some of those PS5 ones over there just for storage or something, you know.
The internal drive installation on the PS5 is super easy if you end up deciding to go down that road. You have to make sure you buy the right drive.
Did you stream that? I think you did. Yeah, I think I watched some of that. I need to. Yeah, how much is a terabyte SD card these days?
150, something like that.
Okay, so not nothing, but like
it's kind of like, it's like more than you want to spend, but like it's like it's a terabyte. Like I get it. Especially I think for one that's like going to be fast. You know, you kind of want one that it's going to have some speed to it because you're loading games off it and all that good stuff. But
we have what I forget what they're not CF Express cards. And the camera back here I have behind me are let me show it to you. This will be great on the podcast.
Yeah, no, this is all okay. He's going back. He's sitting in his chair.
Great.
He's putting his headphones back on. I had to narrate.
I'm back. Thank you. Sorry. This is a 512 SanDisk Extreme Pro. Its write speed is 1400 megabytes per second, and its read speed is 1700. It's about $550.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
I mean,
but 4K footage to one of those.
Yeah, cameras. I was gonna say, what does that hold? 20 minutes of footage.
Well, we have two of them in there, so there's $1,000 worth of SD card in that camera, and together I think they hold, because we'll record at like the highest bit rate, as well. So I think maybe it's an hour and a half on each or something like that, maybe an hour and 20, something like that. So. But yeah, so 150 bad, for an SD card doesn't feel that bad when I consider how much we have to spend on
well,
SD
I can't remember how much the P2 cards cost for our cameras back in 08 when we went to those and
we went digital.
Yes, we're like, fuck all these tapes. Let's just have a mountain of hard drives instead. Just everywhere we moved to, every building we moved to, just Vinny had a growing mountain of hard drives that were just like, this is okay, here's everything from 2011. Like, it's good, you should have that. And
it's wild.
Now where is that? I don't know. Now some facilities guy is probably like putting out cigarettes on those hard drives or something. Who knows? They'll never know. Well,
they're moving again, I guess.
Are they?
From the third? Well, they must be. I guess.
I would assume. I don't.
Fandom have offices in San Francisco, but they also moved during the pandemic. So they used to have that big one, but I don't know if they have that anymore.
Yeah. All the stuff I remember from like back to office stuff when I was like still there was like, they're like, oh, we're going to keep everybody at 235. And I was like, the fuck you are. Right. Like, because they were trying to cram everybody onto one floor and all this other stuff.
Yeah, I saw that. I went in with Jan one time. We're on the third floor, and I think it was the third floor, right? But like, it was beside CNET, and where's CNET's studio? Was that on the fifth floor?
So 5 and 6. 6 was where the main studio was. But I think they eventually tried to cram everybody onto 6, CNET, everything. So yeah, I guess they have to move. I was gonna say like, oh, maybe they'll keep a floor in that building, but I guess they already kind of gave up most of the floors in that building to Apple or whoever. So
yeah, Apple bought. I remember. Yeah, that's when we got off 3.
Yeah,
and then I don't know who took 1. Was that Apple as well?
Yeah, Apple eventually. I think they wanted 1. When we got off 1. I don't remember when we got off 1. It was during the pandemic. So I knew when they finally started letting people come and get their stuff out. That was when I made sure to like, I'm going to get every single thing that I own out of this building right now. I'm not going to leave anything here because I'm pretty sure I'm never, ever coming back to an office to work at this company. Like I already had the vibe. I was like, this ain't going to fucking work out. So let me get all my shit now and make sure it doesn't fucking happen. So yeah. Yeah, you're like so my grandmother, God rest her soul, was in she lived until a ripe old age, but when she was a little bit younger and she was in her 70s, she was in a car crash where a truck backed into their parked car, and she was stuck on the truck side, and one of her friends was stuck on this. Sorry, not stuck. I shouldn't say stuck. When the car hit, she couldn't get out because that's where. So whenever she went to mass, she would always sit at the end of the pew.
because she always remembered that was just in the back of her head. So that's like you working for CBS.
Right.
Where like you always had your bug out bag, or you were like waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. It's just like, all right, some shit's gonna fucking go down here any day now.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's someday. It's not. I'll tell you. I don't remember if I told you the people that they offered those websites to when they started trying to sell them fucking blew my mind when I started hearing about it recently. But anyway,
plenty of stories.
Yeah,
for other days.
Yes, you've been playing some Last of Us 2, but also you've been playing some Stunt Derby. I saw some of this. Now I heard you talk about Stunt Derby, the game that you are making at No Clip. And I finally saw you streaming some of it last week after, I guess, seeing some screenshots on Twitter or something a little bit before that. You're just making stunts. And I'm the cops here to tell you, this is. And if you're not making stunts, you're making hard driving.
Yeah,
but it's but stunts was kind of just them trying to make hard driving in their own weird way. So what the fuck is what are you doing over there?
So you know Alex Austin, I'm pretty sure, from the world of video games. Yeah. He's a Santa Cruz based. He's from Willits, actually.
Okay.
Up in Mendocino. He made Gish with Edmund McMillan back in the day. He made Bridge Builder, like the original Bridge Builder game.
Wow.
Yeah, he did a bunch of stuff over the years. Blast Miner, Pontifex, Subros Says, the game that he's sort of like made. And Alex is like, we love Alex. We've got on really about Alex. We interviewed them for the Gish documentary, kept in touch over the years. Alex is like one of these. He's kind of like, I know Dave was on last week, right, and talking about like his like aficionado or his love of like these like detailed simmy games. Alex is one of these people who is his sickness, his like thing that he focuses all of his life on is physics. All he's ever cared about is making games that have physics. Bridge Builder, Gish, right, was a physics platformer. Subros is a video game where instead of he's like, physics in games are cool, and they got really cool, but like Max Payne and Half-Life 2, but then they became like window dressing. Subros is a game where your character is physics. So your character, your first person character, can fall over. When you throw grenades, you have to like move your arm and release it the right, like it's physics as like everything. There's no animations in his games. He has no animations. It's all physics. So we really like Alex. And a couple of them, I've had this idea of like us building a game only so we can do a series on all of the stuff that we can't get people to talk about a bit. Like publishing deals, marketing, paying influencers, how to do, how to like go to VCs for money, all this sort of stuff, like trailer editing, all this type of thing. Yeah. So a couple of months, about 6 months ago, Alex was basically kind of in between projects and was like, I don't know what I'm doing from now. I might get a real job, I've been indie for this long. And I was like, all right, just hold up. Could we hire you for like 2 months to make a tech demo and we'll maybe do this thing? So what came out of it was, with Stunt Derby, which is 100%. Like, he loves stunts. I grew up with Jeff Crammons made a stunt car racer game.
Right, okay,
which was big. People talk about hard driving a lot. And it's kind of this, like, forgotten genre of games where you would build... I guess Trackmania is the closest thing to it, right? Where you would build tracks, and then you would try and get to the end of the track as fast as possible, and in those games without like breaking your car, without smashing the windshield, kind of going on the loop wrong or whatever. So adding into that the fact that Alex does like these crazy, they're high fidelity physics, he calls them, where it's not realistic isn't the goal, it's more that you can feel them,
right?
And the fact that he's really good at like all this stuff to server side. So his games like Skate or Don't was like a 2D skating game he's made where you can have like over 1,000 people in it at the same time.
I tried playing it and I was like, I'm terrible at this.
Yeah, it's really fucking hard. Yeah. It's like too hard for me to get good at. So on Stunt Derby, we reckon we can probably get like 100 people in there. So
wow.
It's a weird thing. We have it in beta at the moment. There's a series on our channel, No Clip Crew, where we're like, the next episode is basically me talking to two experts, Derek Liu, who does loads of game trailers, asking him about how to cut a trailer for a game, and asking this other guy who makes who does like Steam pages. He like consults on how to set up your Steam page.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's like, of course that exists, but I'm just like, huh, yeah, all right, huh.
So the video is like, we're using our game as like a sort of Trojan horse to do all these videos, which is the idea. And the next one's going to be about publishing, because we're going to try and go get a publisher, and if that doesn't work, we're going to go into early access, and the whole thing might, we'll sell it for like $5 or so, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But the game is turning.
But the price will go up as it gets out of early access.
Exactly, yeah. Right. But it's starting to get really cool, because he's putting in like physics objects, and we have these playtests on the weekends, and because there's an editor in there, loads of the folks on our Discord are like making levels and sharing them. One of the guys who like made N+ is in there making levels for it. Yeah, he just got way into making levels for Stunt Derby, so we've been playing a bunch of those. But yeah, it's been fun. We've been streaming it on Fridays and stuff like that. It's been an interesting, like, the thing that I've learned over like doing this for 6 years is the projects that I enjoy the most are the ones where we really get to be embedded, like the Hades stuff. And anytime we actually get to be in the meetings and like have, see all the raw shit happen. And like Alex was here last week for 2 days working on the game, and it's just like really interesting to like be around that and get a better understanding of kind of what you do know and what you don't know. So yeah, it's fun. We'll see how we go. It's not like I'm here. I feel weird. We don't cover it on the main NoClip channel for this reason, and I don't promote it crazy amounts because it's a weird fucking project that exists for like loads of weird reasons. But it's just it's fun.
But I mean the hope is to create a cool game at the end of it as well, right? I mean, obviously, like you want to document the process, and I mean, as much as that would be funny if you deliberately made something that was garbage and then tried to shop it around to like, let's go to Devolver and try to get them to understand our vision. But
they did publish Subros, so who knows? I might be calling Nigel up one of these days. I mean, I'd like Alex to pay his rent as well.
Of course, yes, I mean? Yeah. Well, I don't know, when NoClip gets acquired by the Embracer Group, how do you think that's gonna affect?
Could you imagine? Jesus,
you're just gonna be following Randy Pitchford around with a camera for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I figured. I've had a weird like come to Jesus moment over a lot of this stuff, and I think some of the like the fandom stuff with Giant Bomb and GameSpot and just everything has I had this like, we're probably too early to talk about any of this stuff, but I had this feeling NoClip would make zero sense for anyone to buy. Like we're well funded.
I pushed multiple times to be like, hey, we should buy NoClip.
It would suck if we had to like balance the books. Like it would look so different, because all of our projects are like passion projects pretty much, and like as long as the patrons are happy, we're fine. But we're not getting the traffic to do that. We could make ourselves more of one of that YouTube channel, but like it just wouldn't be what it is.
Then you're putting out videos that are like, did you know if you hold down A and press start in Super Mario Brothers that you could?
Well, then I just go get I'd get someone to pay me to run a video game website somewhere. Like that's not the whole point. So but my come to Jesus moment was I realized, what happens is all of these companies, if you're going to be one of those companies that like eventually has a parent company because somebody offers you so much money you just can't turn it down, or because it's getting too much work and all that sort of stuff. So the trick is to also own the parent company. Is my thing. So at the moment I'm building a different thing that NoClip that will almost like fund NoClip more.
Okay.
And will also be, if anyone wants to buy something, it'll be this thing.
Right.
It won't be NoClip because I'm worried 5 years down the line. So that's what I've been like doing in secret for the past 4 months. I can't really speak about it, but
that's I'm not too far off with some of that stuff when it comes to thinking about like, okay, we're doing an S Corp for this reason and this reason and this reason. It's not going to have my name in it. Like it was even when the show, when naming this podcast, like there was a part of me who was just like, well, I shouldn't put my name in it because what if I'm not on it someday? And actually it was more like, I want there to eventually be more people on this podcast on a regular basis. And I don't necessarily want it to be the me show, like it could be, you see like Pat McAfee does his sports show and it's like, it's the Pat McAfee show. And he's got like his 3 idiots that are off to the side going like, like laughing at his jokes. It's like, I could do that. But like, I don't
Howard Stern, right?
exactly right.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there's a just you could do that way, and I could do that way. But I kind of, when I think about what I would like this thing to look like down the line, it is something with a larger team that is a little more less focused on just me. It's not like, let's put a team in place to just support me. I mean, it'll start like that, but it'll be like, let's try to get this to a place where it is a bigger thing, able to do bigger things. And so, yeah, I've been trying to think about like, what's the structural component that kind of sets me up now for that so I don't have to like unfuck it later.
Totally. And also, like, there's probably a way for you to do that is someone else's investment or your own investment that isn't tied to the weirdness of running a Patreon, which is just very weird in terms of like pass through tax stuff and like, and also just like it's associated to you in a way that a company doesn't feel like it is. And we did a similar thing because when I launched on Patreon, it was just Daniel Dwyer. It wasn't there was no clip. Was the idea, but it was patreon.com/Daniel Dwyer. And then about a year in, that's when stuff got, you can just flip it. We just rebranded it.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So I had a brand. Oh, well, fuck it.
You don't want to say it just in case. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, so I had a brand. I had a brand ready to go. I did trademark searches, all this other stuff. And then at the literally 11th hour, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to go with it. It's a name that I think is legally. I was worried about getting sued pretty early on.
Okay. It was okay. It was too close to someone else, or
and yeah. So there was an aspect of the name that I was like, it's like a poke the bear thing. It's like not necessarily that there would be a winning lawsuit.
It was Biant Jom.
You know, it's you know, if you think about Giant Bomb as like the big driving force for me for the Giant Bomb logo and name and a lot of that stuff was the box art for Reactor for the Atari 2600.
Oh,
which has this big explosion. And so when it came time to start thinking about new names, I was really having a hard time. And so I started looking at a lot of other Atari 2600 box art, and I came to an Atari 2600 game, and I was like, what about this? And
but then the hat people might come for you,
right? Yeah, or whatever. Yeah, but my previous employer might come for me. So it was just like, yeah. So it was just so like I pulled out of that at the very last minute and said, nope, it's the Jeff Gerstmann show. It's my own name. No one can sue me for using my own fucking name.
Yeah.
Fuck all these people.
And you can change it.
I can change it, but I don't. But also, like, I soured on that name enough that I don't think I'll change it to that. Because I would not want people to think it was affiliated with the thing I was doing before, at all, ever. So yeah, like I'll probably come up with some other name or whatever. Like I already have like the name of the company in mind and all this other stuff, but that'll be like the Skunk Works. Like no one's ever going to hear that name, and all that sort of shit. But yeah,
how you feeling about the Patreon stuff? It's been like, what has it been, 3-4 months now?
Yeah, it's good. It's getting sick is really fucking scary. It turns out.
Ruins everything, right?
Getting just COVID and missing a podcast, and then like I currently have it's not strep throat. I went to urgent care yesterday to get looked at, and they swabbed my throat and said it's not strep, but your tonsils look fucking crazy, dog. I'm like, okay, and so I have some antibiotics here that probably aren't going to do me any good because it's not actually strep throat. And my wife had this about a week ago, and I was sick for a day then. Basically, short version is like, post-COVID has been fucking surreal because we keep getting sick over and over again. And and I can't tell if that's just like, that's COVID, or if it's like, no, we went out more and like my daughter is out kind of seeing other kids, and now like we haven't been sick in 3 years, and so now we're kind of getting it all at once or whatever.
And also like I feel like I forgot what being sick was.
Yeah.
Like it used to not be a big deal so much. Like, oh, I'm sick. Yeah, I still went to work and you know what I mean? Like, didn't change it. Whereas now it's like, I'm so aware of when I'm sick.
Yeah.
But like it totally, and like who I'm going to infect. And like you said, kid changes the equation. You don't want to get your kid sick. You don't want to get your spouse sick. Yeah.
Exactly. So, you know, because like if we're both sick, ain't no one around that can take care of these kids but us. So everyone's getting sick. And so it's been like, that's just been how it is. And so like layering on top of that a purely solo operation that halts if I'm too sick to do it, is you just look at it and go like, all right, man, we're fucking out here. We're fucking out here making it happen. But I love it, man. Like the freedom of it and the interaction and all that other stuff has been so worth it just to be able to like hop on that Discord. And so but not everyone likes to use Discord. And so it's like, I got to make sure that I'm occasionally checking messages on the Patreon because I don't want to forget people there. But like primarily the main conduit has been the Discord. And so it's just like, it becomes one of those things of like, there are 9 different things I could be doing at any given time. And which one is the thing I should actually be doing? Is it working on a YouTube thumbnail? No, but that's what I'm doing. And you know, so there's just like a bunch of shit like that like when I start thinking about like who's the first person I, you know, kind of add to this in you know, probably in some kind of part-time capacity or whatever. It's like that type of like make a YouTube thumbnail or do a vertical version of this video that we can put on, I don't know, YouTube shorts or
publish the podcast or do all the do some tweets or
do some tweets.
Yeah.
That's the other weird thing is like now my personal Twitter account has turned very promotional in nature. And and that's fine because I have, you know, plenty of followers and all that sort of stuff. But it's this thing of just like, am I pushing it too hard? Am I, you know, and trying to figure out like how not to be a jerk about it. But also it's literally like, this is straight up how I feed my family. This isn't like, there's no layers there, right? It's not like, well, this paycheck shows up no matter what until they decide they don't want to do this anymore. And so the number of subs over here matters, but it's not as A to B. It's not like I get more money when more people subscribe. I get my salary. And so, but now it is incredibly directly that. And there's a fucking juice and a rush to that cuts both ways. It can be terrifying. It can be exhilarating. But like the work is fun. And I love fucking doing this work at the end of the day. Like that's always the thing for me is just like, this is the shit I want to be doing the most. And like podcasting is something I've believed in forever. And so like, I'm looking to do more things along those lines as soon as I can come up with a name for it. And then go get logos done, all this other stuff. So yeah, it's been fun. I need to check and see if I have access to it now. I'm probably going to be turning on annual subs here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's a lot of people prefer it.
For people who want to save a little bit of money. Like I definitely have switched to some annual. I think I'm an annual no clipper.
Yeah, you also bought merch from us, I saw as well. So appreciate it.
Yes, thanks for so I'm trying to figure out who to do merch with. So I like, I'm going to buy one of Danny's t-shirts and see if it's actually any good or not.
Exactly.
And it is quite good. So I'm probably going to at least reach out to the people you're using. Also, my other question for you, this is before we get into the news. What camera do you use for this?
This one here?
Yeah.
This is, which alpha is this? I want to call it a Sony 3200. Let me just make sure it's the right one.
I want to get off of webcams because I don't like the shot quality enough. And so I'm thinking about whether it's like there's the Sony EV1 or the EV10 that are like they're vlogger cameras, but I guess
I use the ZV1. I have one.
That's right, ZV1. Sorry, yeah.
I have literally one right beside me right here. This is good. I would say this is almost surplus to requirements. This is the ZV1.
Yeah.
The reason why this one's cool is most Sony cams don't have a flip out on them. This one's good. The one that I use here also does, and it's much cheaper. It's and I like it because you can stick. So I don't know if this kit lens came with it or not. I could send it to you.
Yeah.
But it's because the ZV1 I want to say is like maybe $700.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that range. And then they did a follow-up version to that has a replaceable, like you can actually take the lens off and do fancy stuff with it.
Okay. Actually, it might be the same because I've just checked, and this is the A5100 is the one I use here, which has a 16. This goes as wide as 16, I think. So it goes that wide, which is actually fairly wide. It's like kind of fisheye almost. It says it's $700 on Amazon. I thought they were cheaper. I might be wrong, but anyway, this is an A5100, and then just using a cam link, one of those little USB. Because it makes your computer think it's a webcam, and that's basically what you want. Because otherwise, everything will work except for like Zoom or Google Meet, or if you're using a capture card. And also makes it way easier on OBS because it thinks of webcams as different things to inputs and all that sort of stuff.
Cool. Yeah. All right. I'm probably going to
good.
pick one of those up because that's been that ended up looking like the next step. Cause I just, like I said, the shot quality, the like I'm probably eventually going to move into a different, larger space somewhere in the house, whether I end up having to build an office myself, but like the way zoning works is probably that'll be tough. But anyway, I want to get a better camera.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll send you some links.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And with that, why don't we get into some news?
Sure. Voice actors, huh?
You heard of Bayonetta 3? They're making it.
Are they? Yeah, they're making it for 20 years.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
It's apparently coming out in like 9 days, 10 days. It's the 28th. So 10 days.
Well, I won't be buying it, Jeff.
Oh, yeah?
I'm boycotting it.
You're boycotting it. The original voice actress, Helena Taylor, has asked people to boycott the game and says that she was lowballed on the price to return to the role and only offered $4,000, which is that. I don't know about you. I don't know about voice acting that much. I've done a little bit, but not enough to know the pay rates or the union rates and all the other stuff. That does not seem like very much money to be the like kind of iconic voice for this game.
Yeah.
And so people knew that it wasn't going to be her when some of the trailers hit. Jennifer Hale has stepped in to do the role for the game. And so Helena Taylor it seems like she kind of waited until the game was very close to coming out and then said like, hey, here's the story of why I'm not doing this. I'm probably violating an NDA, but like I can't earn a living wage with what they offered. And I tried to go back to them and say, hey, what are you doing? And they said $4,000 is our final offer and all this sort of stuff. Kamiya, who has largely become the social media public face of Platinum, for better or worse, immediately claimed that there was more to that story than people were getting. And that led to him getting shouted down and basically driven off of Twitter. He deactivated his account and then reactivated it like a day later. So whatever. But his quote, and keep in mind he is a Japanese speaker first and foremost, so this English is maybe not the best. But sad and deplorable about the attitude of untruth. That's what all I can tell now. By the way, beware of my rules.
Whoa.
So have you seen this dude on Twitter? It's like if you tweet to him in English, he'll block you. Like, it's like it's a game, it's like he just blocks people all over the place. And so like maybe not the place to fucking slide in your weird Twitter gimmick on all of this stuff. And he's, and about reactivating, he said, I've seen people repeatedly delete and reactivate their accounts for some time, but after actually doing it, I feel like I understand a little more. It's a sense of liberation, isn't it? Yeah, I don't know about that. Jennifer Hale went on to tweet about it very, very briefly, saying, as a longtime member of the voice acting community, I support every actor's right to be paid well and have advocated consistently for this for years. Anyone who knows me or has followed my career will know that I have great respect for my peers and that I am an advocate for all members of the community. I am under an NDA and am not at liberty to speak regarding this situation. My reputation speaks for itself. And I sincerely ask that everyone keep in mind that this game has been created by an entire team of hardworking, dedicated people. And I hope everyone will keep an open mind about what they've created. And finally, I hope that everyone involved may resolve their differences in an amicable and respectful way. Axios did a little bit of reporting. Steven Sotillo got some information that the previous Bayonetta games required about 3 or 4 sessions per game. And the SAG-AFTRA union minimum is $1,000 per session. So if she was being paid union minimum, then Helena Taylor would have made about $3,000 or $4,000 for those previous games. And the current union deal expires in about 3 weeks. So this stuff is all up for renegotiation very soon. And so it's this flashpoint for this voice acting argument to happen again. It's time for it to happen again. And it sounds like that they need more, but like something about this original claim sits weird with me, and just has me wondering, like, is there something, and Jennifer Hale's thing about keep an open mind and all this other stuff, like, does Bayonetta have a reduced role in Bayonetta 3, and that's why the rate is lower, it's
a Metal Gear Solid 2 situation.
Right. Yeah. It was the first thing I thought of was actually David Hayter getting out there and being like, he didn't ask me to come back for the game. I don't know what's going on. And kind of airing that dirty laundry. And and all of this sort of stuff. It's
yeah. There definitely seems to be a whole lot of something that people are talking around here, and it could easily be that. It also could easily, like, the sort of like the bite that Miss Taylor brought to this makes me feel like maybe there's a lot more bad blood here. Like, there was a great thread by Dominic Armato, who's the guy who voices Guybrush Threepwood, who sort of was in voice acting for a while, hadn't done as much recently, and then obviously for Return had come back. And he sort of laid out a bunch of stuff where he was saying, like, yes, there are like minimums, but like, you know, and a lot of projects will make you do that. But like, hopefully, if you've been an actor on a project for a while, they're starting to, like, you're part of the character at that stage. So like, she shouldn't be getting paid the minimums.
Definitely not.
Whether or not, though, it definitely seems like everyone's talking around, like, maybe there was a breakdown in communication there. Maybe there was negotiations on that, where, you know, they weren't able to meet eye to eye, and maybe, you know, she was asking to who know, like, I don't want to even add conjecture to this, but it definitely feels like there's a
vitriol from her on this that is, you know, like seems like a lot, but also $4,000 seems like not a lot, and voice actors should definitely be paid more.
Yeah.
And
you know what it reminds me of? It's you saw the Rooster Teeth stuff in the past week of, like, obviously there's a huge controversy around the treatment of that one person who worked there, and there's been more stories coming out since. But it reminds me of, for instance, like, you know, I hire a lot of like video contractors here, and oftentimes more than once I have had people, and this is, I'm not trying to, like, you know, I don't know, I was about to say shine light on my butt. I don't think that's actually like a turn of phrase, but
it is now.
What is it? Blow smoke up my own ass? That's what it is. Yeah. But like, the amount of times we'll have people who will, like, come to do work for us, and then they'll tell me their hourly rate, and it's like, that is absurdly low. Like, whereas you hear at Rooster Teeth they were paying people minimum wage, and it's like, you don't pay people minimum wage for, like, skilled work. It's that type of work, and you don't pay minimum rates for people who are, like, part of your story. So, like, the idea that they pay her that little is, like, it's disrespect. Like, how much does it cost them to pay her 4 times the rate? Like, 16 grand.
Yes, when you think about the overall the overall budget for a game like this, like, it is literal drop in the bucket territory 100%. That we're talking about here, and and her voice has become an iconic part of this franchise. It's not to say that it couldn't be replaced and all other stuff, but at the same time, like, she's done very well. She has been lauded for her performance in these previous games and all of this other stuff. But, you know, honestly, like, across the voice acting industry for anime, especially, I feel like I've been hearing this more about anime lately than video games, but I think that's just because video games are so much more secretive, is that the rates fucking suck. The rates are fucking awful. And so, like, any working voice actor is grinding it out, trying to voice as many things as possible, because the individual rate per project is not going to keep them afloat. And so you would like to think a project as major as a Bayonetta 3 would pay better. But the sick part is, like, maybe it does. Maybe $4,000 actually is better than some of the other rates that, you know, that anime voice actors are getting and stuff like that. It's a shitty situation. I kind of go back and forth, because I am also of the mind that, like, games are made by hundreds of people, and there are people with key contributions across the board that do not get paid residuals, that do not get paid all other stuff, but many of them do earn an annual salary and get benefits and all that other stuff. So it's not quite a one-to-one comparison. I guess I just think that everyone should probably be getting paid more all the way around.
Totally. And I think that's where I think the boycott thing made me, you know, feel a little bit like left a bad taste in my mouth, because, like, that's, I don't know, that's, even if you've been aggrieved to that point, you know, that's kind of like taking a little bit too much. I don't know, like, it's self-serving, you know what I mean? Like, it's
yes,
I don't like that aspect.
Yeah, like trying to create a cause around it, especially when the game has almost certainly gone gold, and it's like, it's not like they're gonna, you know, are you gonna create enough of a stink that they're gonna bring you back in and you're like, oh, okay, we'll have you record the dialogue. Like, it's too
she
late.
had this in the chamber, it seems like, for release, which is why it feels a little
it feels like a targeted hit or whatever. But, you know, at the same time, I can't, like, she's not wrong about the if that's what she was paid, if that what she was offered, then that's fucking terrible.
The other conjecture one I have in my head is, like you said, if they changed changed the age of Bayonetta, or like, I don't know, Bayonetta is like Jadzia Dax in Deep Space Nine, and Bayonetta changes into someone else. I don't know what the deal is, but whether or not they were lowballing to try and kill
the young girl is now grown up into Bayonetta. Like, there's actually there's lore stuff that you could look at and actually find a reason to change the voice if you were specifically trying to do that.
Maybe we'll find out in a couple of weeks, I guess. But yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like, she's not wrong. I don't fully agree with the way maybe it was done, but also, if you're trying to get eyeballs on this sort of stuff, I get the sort of scorched earth policy.
And now's the right time. If the union deal's coming up in a few weeks here, like, turning this into a hot button issue right now will probably, will hopefully help people in this space do better at the bargaining table. Next time.
Are you getting that right if you were like voicing like NPC 12 though? Well, like, is that what the minimum is? You know what I mean? Like random chatter and stuff like that. Like,
you know, Axios had a little bit more on this that I don't have in front of me right now. That there may be cases of, like, if you're just doing a quick spot or something like that, there may be a little bit lower, but the $1,000 a session seems to be what the union minimum is. But of course, there are a ton of projects that are non-union as well. Right. And so there's an agreed upon non-union rate as well, that, you know, because a lot of indie devs and stuff like that are not going to necessarily be able to pay each one of their voice actors $1,000. And so but then I think that one of the situations, one of the actors that came out and started talking about this, talked about, like, I've voiced characters in major games, but like this indie game I did paid way better because they gave me points.
Right.
And so because they paid me in a percentage, like, this ended up being one of the more lucrative things that I've done.
Wow.
And, you know, because that's something an indie dev can play around with if they're like, hey, I literally do not have $1,000 to give you right now because you know, we are eating ramen and making this game in a garage, but hey, how about if it sells this, I'll give you this. And that sounds like I say that sounds pretty good, but then that opens the door of, like, who deserves residuals if they're working on a game? I'm gonna say a lot of people probably do. A lot of people that stick with a game through concept to completion, or, you know, whatever, like a lot of people that work on games probably deserve better payouts on the back end.
And if games development continues to unionize, and then you get a situation like Hollywood, like, there's a reason Hollywood is the way it is. It's because games and movies and stuff exist in perpetuity. They're not like theater productions. They continue to earn revenue. And right now, if you designed like one of the most iconic games ever, you're not getting any money for that. You're getting your wage, and that's it.
Right.
And maybe a bonus. I don't know. Maybe a bonus off of
hopefully,
amount,
you know, that was one of the things that, like, when Borderlands 3 was coming together, you heard all the stories about, like, you know, everyone's sticking it out because they're going to get bonused out at the end, and then they got bonused out at the end, and it was not the bonus they thought it was going to be, and they're like, well, wait a minute, fucking what? And so you end up with a lot of people who were counting on that money to be different than it ended up being, and that's a whole separate situation. But you know, they've been embraced now, so I'm sure they're all fine. Warm hug,
more visual gags for the audio listeners.
The warm hug that brought you Saints Row. So that.
Do you remember those Saints Row 3 Tim and Eric commercials?
Yeah.
I was watching those last night. They were so funny.
They're really good. There was like that Saints Row 3 to 4. Like, there was more 3 than 4, but like they just had tapped into a thing with those games that they don't have now, and I don't think they had before that either with 1 and 2.
No. God, 1 is such a weird game. One is just a Grand Theft Auto clone with a little bit of tood.
Right.
It's we need to get a GTA game out before GTA hits this Xbox 360.
And if you review it high, Rockstar is going to be pissed. If you give Saints Row a high review score, Rockstar is not going to like it. God, yeah. What a fucking mess. Hey, a new Mortal Kombat has been announced.
Has it? It has for you, sicko. You'll play any of this shit.
Yeah, I'll play this. So coming in 2023 is Mortal Kombat Onslaught. It is a mobile game. It is being developed by NetherRealm.
Awesome.
And it appears to be a collection RPG, which sounds to me like they are trying to not use the words gotcha game. But boy, it sure sounds like a gotcha game.
Collection RPG. That's a great spin.
Yeah.
I like it.
But it sounds like you will form a team of characters and get out there and fight with them. It is billed as the first mobile exclusive cinematic story experience for the franchise, where players must build a team of fighters from a vast roster of characters and unleash them in massive real-time group battles to stop a dark and dangerous threat from wreaking havoc across the realms. So, sounds like the typical world. Reality hangs in the balance kind of Mortal Kombat story, but some kind of group combat RPG kind of thing. And you'll get a 5-star Johnny Cage or something, and you'll pull a 5-star Johnny Cage out of like a portal. Be like, I bought 10 pulls from the red portal. I got human smoke.
That's Mortal Kombat seems ripe for like card collect, buying packs of stuff. Like that, it just feels very 90s dollar store or something. Is there any images or videos of this thing?
There's like there's key art on their website, and so you get a look at like their kind of take on like Scorpion and Sub-Zero and some of the other fighters. It's relatively, I'd say, a little cartoonish in some ways, but
Raiden confirmed.
Yeah. But this will be funny. Like, so they've done mobile games before, and they've been relatively well received, as I understand it. But this at least seems like it's something different, where instead of like them trying to do a fighting game, and
you could argue that they have not done enough with that franchise. Like,
totally. Yeah.
If another, they haven't been embraced, right? They're not.
No.
Who owns Warner Brothers?
Warner it's Warner Brothers Discovery. There was a lot of talk that Warner was going to bail on all their video game companies and sell them off, and they ended up selling off a mobile studio that did a golf game, and there was one other one. But then they reversed course and decided to hang on to stuff. It sounded like that they wanted to deal the studios but somehow retain control of the IP, which seems insane.
Okay.
If you're just like, okay, we control Mortal Kombat, but we'll sell you the people that make Mortal Kombat. It's like, okay, what are they going to do? Go make Tao Bang 2 or something? Like what?
Now that you mentioned that, I would not mind seeing Ed Boon have a fresh slate. I bet that guy's got like 30 years of weird ideas that he can't do because he's like, I got to put it in the nether realm.
Scorpion's got to be here again.
Damn it. He's got like a My Little Pony idea that he's been working on for like 30 years. He's like, finally, my chance.
I think he just wants to make a DC versus Marvel game.
Right, yeah.
And because he keeps tweeting about it, for sure.
But you could argue, like, with the amount of like saturation of IP we have these days with like Disney and Star Wars, and like everything's got everything. I mean, they made that movie, and that movie was all right, but like, you could argue there could be more Mortal Kombat shit in the world, like. It's a pretty big IP. Yes. So
there is. They did announce some additional. I think it is an animated movie. They've done a couple of little things here and there over the years, so I think they may have something else coming in that form, and they'll eventually make a sequel to that movie. I think they're coming up with the script right now.
That was good. Do you like that?
It was fine. Yeah, it was. It's one of those things where, like, if I try to compare it too closely to the video games, I start to get a little angry about this, and this. But like, whatever. It was fine for what it was. It was a good little retelling of those stories, and they should get the Miz in the sequel to play Johnny Cage. I think that they should really just get him for that role. But also, like, if you think about it, like, Mortal Kombat has really retracted its roster down to a lot of the key characters from the original trilogy because of the way they've been telling that story. Since Mortal Kombat 9 came out and kind of like got them back to the core characters from 1, 2, and 3, they've really started building off of that in ways that abandoned 3 whole games worth of characters from 4, 5, and 4 through 7, really.
Just settling on like the next generation of those fighters, like the combat kids and all that stuff.
Yeah, and so they went down that road, which I think was a much smarter road than a lot of the stuff they were coming up with on the PS2 and Xbox. Like, a lot of those characters are just
got a bit weird there. Who's the weird? What's the most esoteric? In a game full of esoteric characters, who is the most weird?
I mean, there's their joke characters like Meat and Mocap, which is Mocap is just a dude in a mocap suit. There's characters that kind of started as rumors, like you would see like the guy on fire in the background of Mortal Kombat 2. And for some reason, people cemented on this idea that guy's name was Hornbuckle. And
what? I've never heard that before. Hornbuckle.
And so at some point that kind of worked its way into something resembling canon and all of this other stuff. And so it's, yeah, I don't know. My go-tos are always Barraro, the big fat drunk guy who threw up. And when he threw up on the ground, if you stepped in the puke, you would slip, and that would allow him to follow up with an attack. And but okay. they have kept bringing Barraro into the modern game. He's one of the characters that kind of made it out of that era.
Barraro.
Unlike what? Like Havoc with a K. Or the guy that was originally supposed to be Ken. Cobra with a K.
Cobra. Was there a Lady Baraka at one stage? I feel like there was a Lady Baraka.
There has to have been. There has to have been. There has to have been.
Barakina.
Yeah, there's a whole I don't know, that whole generation of Mortal Kombat games, like I barely remember anything about them anymore. that stuff just all kind of faded away. And that was the era when they made Liu Kang a zombie. Oh right, So Melina has jaws that are Baraka like.
Oh yeah.
So when she pulls down her mask, was
that a retcon thing? She didn't. That wasn't in 2.
It was in 2. When she pulled it down, you would
you're right.
You would see it. It wasn't it wasn't like on full display. They definitely went way more over the top with it.
Yeah.
In subsequent games, but yeah. I am trying to find. It sounds like there may be some additional detail on the Bayonetta story.
Okay. Breaking news.
It sounds like Bloomberg has the full story is much more complicated. He says Platinum offered Helena Taylor between 3 and 4K per session for at least 5 sessions, according to 2 people familiar with the deal and documentation viewed by Bloomberg. In response, Taylor asked for a 6-figure fee and residuals, and negotiations fell apart. Taylor denies this account. In an email to Bloomberg, she called that version of events an absolute lie and said that Platinum is trying to save their ass and the game. So they're saying 5 sessions for 3 or 4K per session. So that's a maximum of 20K there.
Which I would say sounds reasonable, but also a drop in the bucket.
Right. Yeah. It's not like 20K is some like, oh, well, now you're talking. I'm sure it's definitely better than 4. But
and they're saying that she wanted whatever
6 figures and residuals. Yeah.
Which, yeah, I mean, that sounds like a lot, but yeah, it's hard to it's hard to tell without seeing the game and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But like, and also if that's that could also, like she said, it could be a lie, it could not be. Somebody's lying. That's the thing. Somebody's lying. It's either them or her, and it's like,
yeah,
they're the worst stories to have to talk about because you're just like picking sides based on
Yes, and Bloomberg, Jason Schreier claims to have seen the documents with those offers, but again,
okay,
with the offer
of the 16 grand or whatever that was, but not of her asking.
According to 2 people familiar with the deal and documentation viewed by Bloomberg, so it sounds like that they provided him with straight up. Man, what a fucking. I mean, whatever. They have to find a way to get their story out there somehow, right? But like. Literally providing like, hey, here's a copy of what we offered her to Schreier, knowing that he's going to get it out there. It's just like real. Like,
it's
like that's the company knows it can't fucking say shit, but at the same time they're like, well, we've got to get it out here. Here you go. Zoop.
Right. Oh boy. The discourse is going to love that. More chum for the discourse, Jeff.
Yep.
Just throw it out there.
Fight
right. Among yourselves, fuckers.
That's right.
Go to Reddit.
The question of who gets residuals on a game and who doesn't is a really, really complicated one. And I don't know that I have much more to add on that other than it's a shitty situation. Moving on. NVIDIA has decided to they refer to this as unlaunching.
This is so silly.
The 12 gig 4080. These 4080. So they launched the 4090 last week. Apparently, I can't find one. You get one. You're like, hey, I got to edit video and I need this video to render faster. So obviously we need the hot shit, right? Or Mac Shop.
What's Mac Shop?
Are you a Macintosh shop? Are you
a Mac shop? Yeah. No, we are pure PC.
Okay.
We have enough graphics cards for the whole team at this stage, but yeah, they were so bloody expensive during the pandemic. I mean, it affected everyone, but yeah, we had to upgrade 2 of them, and it was like.
Yeah, no, I talked last week about the insane amount of money I had to pay for a pandemic computer. It's crazy because I could go to another pre-build company right now and basically check every box, like give me the hottest shit you can sell, including a 4090.
Yeah.
And it is like $2,000 cheaper than this computer.
Oh my God. No thanks.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Thanks, crypto.
Yeah, it's a bad time all around. So there were 2 versions of the 4080, and one of them was this 12 gig version that they kind of swept under the rug, that there were a lot more differences with that card than just the RAM. You know, it was like, oh, This has like fewer compute cores. It's this, it's that. Like it is really a lower class of card compared to the other 4080 that is still coming out. And so prior to these cards even getting announced and the specs kind of and the specs kind of leaking out and stuff like that, everyone kind of assumed that this card was going to be called the 4070. Right. And when it wasn't, they were like, that seems deceptive. And I don't know what happened in the chain of events here, but NVIDIA has decided to just not release that card. And they say having 2 GPUs with the 4080 designation is confusing. So we're pressing the unlaunch button on the 4080 12 gig. The 4080 16 gig is amazing and on track to delight gamers everywhere on November 16th. If the lines around the block and enthusiasm for the 4090 is any indication, the reception for the 4080 will be awesome. End of story.
Yeah, I'd love to know what it seems like I'd love to know what internal battle happened did they have these components left over and we're like, oh, we can make this subclass of card, or like there's this type of consumer that we're trying to attract to, and then the marketing people were like, oh, I don't know. And it just like, I'd love to know what how it happened in the first place. I mean, in a way it's kind of cool to see them make decisive action on it. It seems like the right call. Nobody seems to be cribbing for this at all. Like, disappointed.
No, but because there's if you want to get a different, the competitors are offering like really good graphics cards at significantly lower prices. So it's almost like NVIDIA is almost better served just carving out the high end for themselves.
Yeah.
And not offering too many lower end options, especially when the 4090 sells out like this. And they're like, well, we don't, maybe at some point they thought like, well, we need to offer a full slate because some people aren't going to be able to afford $1,600. And they're like, oh, well, whatever. We're selling as many as we can make anyway. Let's devote those resources to just making more 4090s. Yeah. And we can worry about this problem later. Some people have tried to speculate, which I don't think is the case, but like, oh, well, they were going to get a class action lawsuit against them for calling it a 4080. I don't think that would happen, but
no. And yeah, there's so many different wheels here. There could be a thing where their investors want more of their things on shelves. You know what I mean? Like just, they don't want stuff selling out all the time. And maybe that helps with like some sort of inventory issue. It's always so hard to tell with this sort of stuff. It's way above my pay grade. But it's
I'm sure that it was just one of those situations where there's just a line graph and the lines crossed in some way. And they're like, oh, it actually we should not do this.
It made sense before, but maybe
and so they reversed course.
So did they ever come out? Were they out for a little while?
No.
Are they like collector's editions now?
No.
Okay, no. Right.
I'm sure some exist, right? But I wonder if they're going to rebadge them as 4070s and sell them next year, or what happens there. But those things do probably exist in some quantity, or if they're just like there's probably some in some channel somewhere. Who knows? Sony is getting ready to put some controllers into the channel early next year. The DualSense Edge is going to release globally on January 26th. This is their version of the Pro controller, the Elite controller, whatever you want to call it. It is a higher end PlayStation 5 controller and is going to sell for $200.
For edgelords around the world, all of you who love to just be edging. Always on the edge.
I love to edge, but like honestly, this is a bit much for me. It's that's more expensive than the Xbox Elite controllers were when they came out. I've seen it's the cool thing about these controllers is that they will have like replaceable joystick hardware, basically. Not just the domes and like, oh, I want it to feel this way, because the Xbox controllers did that. Like the physical sticks themselves, you can replace from the looks of it. And so at that point, one of the things people complain about is stick drift. And over time, these controllers, kind of starting to suck a little bit. They could fix that across the board with higher quality hardware and going with Hall effect sticks or what have you. But like, instead they've just made it so you can replace those parts if they start to act up. So let's see, what are you getting for $200? You're getting a controller, a cable, 2 standard analog stick caps, 2 high dome caps, 2 low dome caps, 2 half dome back buttons, 2 lever back buttons, and a connector housing and a carrying case. So it will have rear buttons, sort of like the Steam Deck does, but it only has 2 of them, which I've seen some people say for this kind of money, it should definitely have 4, because the whole point of having those triggers is for players who don't ever want to use the face buttons. They don't ever want to take their thumb off the right stick. And so they want to have 4 on the back for replicating all of the face buttons. So it sounds like even for that pro market, they're not even necessarily hitting what that market might think of as a bare minimum.
Yeah.
And that's a little weird.
It's a weird one. Yeah. I often wonder who wants the pro controllers whole cloth. I mean, the Elite one was good, but I mean, they must sell. They must sell a lot as well. Or maybe the markup on them is so high that they don't need to sell a lot. Like they're just
right.
How many more components are in this than the standard one? Really, for them.
Yeah.
It does seem like a lot.
And the Elite controllers were kind of finicky. Like there were like just build quality things with them where they would fall apart a little bit over time. Which was sort of a bummer. They're now selling a white version of the Series 2 controller for Xbox that is in a cheaper package that doesn't come with all the hardware and bits and bobs, and you can swap out and you can buy all that stuff separately, but then it's the same price. But even at full price, that thing was not $200, and that's a lot of money. I don't think I like the PlayStation 5 controller enough to want to do this. I don't know. It got me really thinking about the PS5 controller for the first time in a little while, and I've been playing some games on PS5 lately that have had me holding that controller a bit more than I have over the past few months. And I think that controller's a little on the heavy side.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's just something like it's got a nice heft and a bulk to it and all that stuff, and that's great. But like, there's just I don't know, the weight distribution on it doesn't feel right for my wrists and hand and stuff. Like there's just something about it. Like I don't want to hold it for long periods of time. I don't think I love the face buttons on it. It's a cool controller. The triggers are really neat when publishers decide to do something with that.
Yeah.
But
First party teams decide to do something with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have to.
Yeah, but
would you get one out of interest? Out of journalistic need?
Maybe. I don't know. Like I potentially I would consider it at least, but I don't know.
I wonder if to be hard to come by.
Well, so they're going to start selling them end of January just directly through their store, and then it'll be another month before they start selling them at retail. Your camera is frozen, by the way.
Oh shit. All right.
And so we'll see. I mean, it'll have a month of sales through the PlayStation Direct store, which is how I bought my face plates to begin with. And I bought my black face plates. I thought was very fun. Let's see. We are waiting for Danny to reconnect here. He is not reconnected. He is theoretically reconnected. But now you're seeing 2 shots of me. It was me all along. Beef OBrady here. Boy, no. Let's get there. He is. Hi.
Hey, what's up?
Certainly wasn't trying to do an Irish accent while you were gone.
Top of the morning. Can you speak any Irish? Do you want to learn how to speak some Irish?
Yeah. What do I got to say? My mom just went to Ireland for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah, and because we have my grandfather on her side is full blood Irish, and then his parents were there, so lived there. So,
terrific. Do you know where she went at all? Where in my beloved Isle?
No, she ended up, someone she knows ended up winning some very fancy trip where they got to stay at all these like golf resorts, and so they went to Ireland and Scotland and did this whole thing. And it sounds like she had a great time eating food in castles and stuff like that.
Terrific. Yeah, that's all we do back home.
Yeah, no, that's
play golf and eat food in castles.
Yeah, everyone knows
Typical.
it.
Yeah,
and drinking Buckfast the entire time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get some of that delicious Bucky, straight from the monks. I'm trying to think what video game is in a computer is Revera, I believe. Revera, am I right? Irish
Revera?
People watching it.
Wow.
Revera, yeah. Ismalum Revera, you could say. I love computers. Ismalum Revera.
Would anyone ever say that? Is there anyone so dedicated to the language in this day and age?
There's like parts of the country where they speak it like 24/7. You know, they call them Gaeltachts. These part of, real holdouts. And then everyone has to learn it, obviously, like all from primary school through, what you call high school or whatever.
Yeah.
What you'd call high school. I'm an American now. what we'd call
we would call high school. You might call.
But it's like, we're all dog shit at it because it's like, it's just we're forced. It's a really tricky language. There's more irregular verbs than regular verbs. It's a nightmare to learn. Yeah. The one thing that every Irish person knows how to say is "An bhfuil cead agam dul go dtí an leithreas," which means "Can I go to the bathroom, please?" Which is what you say to the teacher when you want to go for a slash.
Yeah. You can't just say "I want to go for a slash."
No, because then they'll like hit you or something.
Okay.
It's weird. Now that I'm sending my kid to school and like talking to my wife about her school times, and I'm like telling her about we were talking about, because it's like, I went to an all boys school. We wore a uniform. I never was in a class with a girl or didn't wear a uniform to school until I went to university. But I was talking to her about my daughter was asking me about what I played with at school during lunch break, and I was like, we just had a concrete yard. Like there was
and my stood around. Like, maybe someone had a ball. Like no.
Yeah. She was like, and I was like, what? Did you guys have like jungle gyms and stuff? She was like, yeah. And I was like, no, it was just like a couple of hundred of us. It was a big concrete yard, kind of looked like a prison. But I said we all played football, like we all play soccer or whatever. We kick a ball around. She was like, oh, the school provided the balls. And I was like, no, we had to bring our own.
Oh wow, yeah.
but none of this seemed weird. And she was like, why didn't they do this? And I was like, because if they built something, the country was poor, somebody would have broken it, and then they would have said they wouldn't have the money to fix it, and then they would have said, this is why we don't give you things, because you break them.
Yeah. And then someone will get hurt on the broken thing. And
yeah. Totally, yeah. Jimmy will break his arm, break his collarbone, and then we used to play with big footballs, big soccer balls. I remember one day our team was playing it. We used to play on this like hill. It was like a 30-degree hill. So we had to swap at halftime because it was like impossible. If you're a goalkeeper on the bottom of the hill, it was like a nightmare. It was all concrete as well. So all our trousers were torn to shit. But one of the lads hit the ball, and of course we had to bring our own balls in. So he had like this awfully heavy, weird ball made of plastic, big twine. It was like a basketball, this thing was. And he kicked it, and Miss Flavin was going for a drink of tea. Fucking right in the face, just like broke the cup. All of us were just like when the ball got hit, it was like slow-mo, like fuck, and it happened. And then that was the one time the school bought us balls, because they forced us to use these tiny tiny little balls, and the spin that our headmaster put on it was that Pele learned how to play balls kicking around plastic bags, and that we would be good at football if we used these tiny little balls. Yeah. So, and this is like the 90s. Like this, I'm only 36. This isn't like just a bit weird.
My elementary school was definitely like mostly just a concrete fenced-in yard, but but they had painted lines down for you to theoretically play games like Foursquare. So if you had a ball, which they'd have like 8 balls for the whole class, so you could like go like, I want to get a ball, and if you got the balls first, you had the balls. You could try to check it out, and they try to make it fair somehow. But like, and they had a the only other thing they had was a wooden wall that you could play handball on.
Oh,
and so you had the big red rubber ball, and you would hit that onto the wall and play handball with people, and it was like a racquetball-esque. It's like racquetball, but you were using your hands on one of these red rubber balls. And then they also had there was like a little bit of a jungle gym kind of sandboxy kind of area, but it was really small. It wasn't like the whole class was going to be able to fit in there or anything like that. But so it was really it was just Like we just stood around a bunch. That's where kids got cool ideas like, all right, if you stand back up against this wall and then I lean on your chest with my hands like this with all my weight, eventually you'll pass out and that'll be awesome.
And for a couple of seconds before you do it, it'll feel like
you'll feel like
you're drunk or something.
Yeah. Yes. And so we did that. I never had that done to me, but I did it to people.
I just remembered that our school was like there was 2 yards. It was the big yard and the little yard, and they talked about when you went from the little yard to the big yard, when you grew up, you got your big yard baiting, which was that you got beaten up by the big kids. It never fucking happened, but they talk about it. But I remember the big yard, there was a bunch of fancy houses that were like adjoined to the school. Like they were sort of like about as close to a mansion as you get in my hometown. They were like nice private estates. They were right there, and there was a wall which in my mind's eye was like 10 foot tall. It was probably only like maybe 7 foot tall or something. And we used to be able to like try and look up, like, you pick someone up to have a look over. But the top of that wall, to stop people from doing it, was cement that had been poured with broken glass.
Oh, jeez. What the fuck?
I know, yeah. And like I remember we used to go up and you'd be careful where you put your hands, because like 80 years ago someone had put in broken glass, like it was all sticking up out of the top of the thing. So fucking next to a school. I never, like, until now it was just normal. I just remembered like they surely changed those walls. There's no way.
That is some fucking Borderlands fucking end of the world type shit, a wall topped with broken glass. That is some fucking makeshift apocalypse prison type stuff. That's not even
crazy. The shit that you just think is normal.
Yeah.
When you're a kid.
I think we could at least afford barbed wire, to try to keep kids from climbing stuff, but
it's like one step more acceptable, because like barbed wire, theoretically you see it before it's too late.
Right.
But if you're climbing over one of these walls, it's like we knew it was there because we saw it every day.
The hard way, but
if you're at nighttime jumping over a wall and then fucking, I don't know, maybe like 80-year-old glass is like a little bit softer. Maybe it's been weather beaten a little bit.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Some of the edges either dulled or sharpened by the elements.
Good point. Yeah. Maybe a bit sharper.
Facebook bought some VR studios. This came kind of in conjunction with them announcing that headset that no one's going to buy. $1,500 for the Quest Pro. I just don't think that's going to work. But they also went and bought Armature, which was the studio started by ex-Retro folks, and they did Recore. I think that was maybe their most recent. No, anyway, the most recent console game that I think they did was Recore. And then they were the studio that was working on that first-person shooter Mega Man game that got killed called Maverick Hunter, that some footage leaked out a few years ago. But that was the game that when it was described to me, it was described as like Dark Mega Man. And
oh, hell yeah.
It just seemed like an abysmal project from top to bottom, but I don't know. They also bought Twisted Pixel.
You're kidding.
Yeah, no. You may remember from Splosion Man and Gunstringer. But then at some point after they got bought by Microsoft, if you remember correctly.
Okay.
And then they went independent again. They pulled a Bungie, and Twisted Pixel got out of that and went indie again and started making VR games like Wilson's Heart, and they did a few other ones that I believe were published by Oculus. And so now they have been acquired by Facebook Meta. And now they're over there. Gunstringer, hell of a game.
Yeah. Everyone loves Splosion Man. You guys did a lot of coverage of Splosion Man on Giant Bomb, I remember. Did you guys have them in there a couple times, I think?
Yeah, I think they came through, and then Gunstringer was just like a hilarious kind of send up of like the Mad Dog McCree era light gun shooter. And there was the Wavy Tube Man Chronicles, which was a DLC for Gunstringer. That was a fun thing. And I don't know, that was pretty awesome. And then the third studio they have acquired is Camouflage. Ryan Payton's
with a J.
Yes, Camouflage with a J, which they did that Iron Man VR game, but they also did Republic. And
interesting.
Yeah.
God.
Iron Man VR was originally a PlayStation VR game, but it is coming to Quest next month. So
so this is all presumably for Meta, for metaverse stuff, right?
Well, I don't know. They're still going to have to make games, right? They're still going to have to ship software. So I don't know how much of this will end up funneling into the giant fucking vacuum that is Horizons or whatever. But I assume that these people will be, working on on separate projects and still looking to ship games, because that thing does still have a storefront. It still does have all that stuff. Yeah, I don't know. Like Facebook, the process of Facebook and Oculus funding VR projects and some of the behaviors that they've exhibited, I heard some stories that didn't sound great. At least these studios are just getting acquired instead of jerked around.
Yeah, it may also be a byproduct of that, perhaps, that like people are, maybe they can't get people to make games for this.
Well, yeah.
More, so this is the best way of doing it, is to bring it all in house. But
yeah, and they, it's like they've been having to fund a lot of games anyway. So at some point, maybe just might as well just buy them. Yeah. And we'll see how that all goes. I don't know. Like that, it feels like the next moves in VR are going to be PlayStation VR 2, and then at some point Valve's going to announce Deckard, or whatever their Quest-esque standalone VR headset appears to be from all those leaks and all that other informed speculation. Speaking of speculation, it sounds like well, this is maybe a little bit more than that. Call of Duty. We've heard reports that there's not going to be a full-fledged, full-priced Call of Duty game next year.
Right.
That they're going to take a year off, which they desperately need to do. And based on the beta of Modern Warfare 2, I'm going to say this seems like the year to do it. That seems like a good game that if they support it well, it could have legs. And I guess these legs are going to come in the form of a variety of content, including potentially new premium content for the Call of Duty ecosystem in 2023. A Call of Duty leaker got out there and said that, yes, there's going to be some new stuff sold next year. Bloomberg corroborated that and said it will include campaign stuff. So, like, instead of shipping a full-fledged new game next year, they will ship all the pieces of one with a bunch of new maps. Also, that this may include, that this pack may include a bunch of remakes of original Modern Warfare 2 maps, which could be fun. And that game is out this week.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's happening. We're in it now.
Yeah.
You can tell. Everyone's doing reviews and
madness. Dude, it is. I have gone from like, oh, what am I gonna play? It's like I've been playing like 4 games that I can't talk about yet. And it's fun to be in this time of year in a weird way, but also like, holy shit, a lot of stuff sure did happen all at once, and it was nice to the list of companies. So I was really bad about reaching out to publishers because there was so much happening all at once, getting back to being alone and not having time to do all that sort of stuff. I think as a result of the last few weeks of games coming out and all this other stuff, there's only one now that I think I need to figure out who to get a hold of, and or one or two actually. But
you're on all the mailing lists now.
Yep, games are showing up. It's crazy. I got a pair of headphones with Street Fighter branding on them the other day.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
Review coming soon.
Right, yeah. Let's see. The Final Fantasy VII Battle Royale that everyone loved.
I forgot this thing even existed, Jeff.
It has a name. The First Soldier. Final Fantasy VII, The First Soldier. It is ending service on January 11th. They're shutting it down. It launched in November, so that's a little over a year.
Yeah, in and out. Fail fast, Yep.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
They're like, hey, can we put blockchain shit in this? No, shut it down.
I mean, it makes sense when they make these games. That's the that's the way of it. A lot of the times, especially with like online stuff where they're figuring it out as they're launching it. Yeah. Like it shouldn't be that surprising in many ways.
No. And I think you probably know in the first month or something if a game is going to catch fire, and then you're like, okay, well, how long do we? What are we really doing here?
Give it a year of fixing some stuff. Did it work? Did we get more? Did the curve change? No. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, hopefully we learned something along the way. Shut it down. After almost a year of jumping around on chocobos, mashing it up in melee battles, and sniping from the rooftops of Midgar Undercity, it is with a heavy heart that we are announcing the end of service for Final Fantasy VII: The First Soldier. Despite all our efforts to bring you regular updates with fresh and exciting content, we haven't been able to deliver the experience that we were hoping to and that you all deserve. So we've made the extremely tough decision to end service. We would like to thank you for supporting us over the past year.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. I did download it. I'd played through part of the tutorial when it first came out, and I was like, this doesn't seem like the worst thing in the world. and
There you
then
go. Stick it on the box.
yeah, and then never played it again. I had forgotten all about this. I think I still have it installed, honestly.
Too many games, Jeff. It's too many games.
No, yeah, yes, there are.
Says the guy playing Portal 2 and the last week.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah, like I went to bed early last night and I was like, well, let's play some Atari 2600 games before bed.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. You're worse than me. Good.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, there may be too many games, but there are definitely not too many places left that cover them.
Oh boy.
Comcast has pulled the plug on G4 in a really shitty way. I guess this was
they got Wario 64 to announce it.
Yeah,
that was weird.
Hashtag ad. Amazon affiliate link to Adam Sessler pillows.
Yeah. Hope he got scratched for that one.
Yeah. This sucks, man. So this is, I guess, a memo. Well, okay. This is actually, like, now that I'm like, the verbiage on this Deadline Hollywood story is it says, in a memo set to be sent out to all employees, implying that when they got a hold of the memo, it had not been sent out yet. Spectacor CEO. So this is a division of Comcast. So Spectacor is a division of Comcast that I believe runs their esports operation. They run the Philadelphia team in the Overwatch League, I believe.
Okay.
And this whole division, as I understand it, is a kind of a pet project for the son of the CEO.
Oh.
At least that end of it. I don't know if the G4 revival was part of that pet project per se, but the whole thing, when this got announced, and once I dug into that little aspect of it and saw, like, let me get this straight, the CEO's son runs this division. This doesn't seem like a good thing. Yeah, so this sounds like the Deadline got a hold of the memo before it was sent out. So this came out Sunday. People found out on Twitter that they had lost their jobs. People were on flights finding out, like, oh, by the way, don't come to work on Monday. Or I guess come to work on Monday and get your shit. I don't know how that aspect of it went. This is terrible. Like, the idea that this would leak. Not that there's you're losing your job the same way, like, regardless, right? It's fucking fucked either way. But to have it, like, leak this way and get posted on a Sunday when you're trying to live your life seems like the absolute worst way for this to go.
Yeah, for a staff that I assume I'd be pretty light on my feet after work at G4. They were hustling to try and, say what you want about the end product or whatever, but, like, I'm sure that they knew that they had a bit of some layoffs during the summertime. Like, I'm sure they were, like, hustling because they knew that this wasn't, like, a job for life. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think Golden Boy was in contract negotiations for his next. You know what I mean? So, like, it was, and this seems like it's so high up the stream, right? This is like a cord getting cut real at like exec level that just, like, but yeah, it's completely, even for those people who are kind of braced maybe for something, this is nuts that it can just happen so fast and so brutally.
It was really hard it was really hard for me to get a handle on what G4 was supposed to be this time around when they announced it and started having their, like, because they re-announced it at, like, Comic-Con or something like that and tried to be like, we never stop playing, G4 is back. And then they launched it and it wasn't on TV, but it didn't seem to be on, like, streaming set-top box services either. Like, they do have a Pluto channel now,
right?
But I don't believe they did then. And so the whole thing seemed like a super expensive Twitch channel. And as someone who has run a pretty expensive Twitch channel in the past, I know how that goes. But it's a really fucking, it's just, the whole thing seemed really strange. It felt like that they were always, like, even still, like, I think now, even if there's like a where do I go to watch G4 like page on their site that doesn't immediately have, like, a good clear answer, and it kind of never did.
I remember the YouTube channel stuff they split out too, because they had, like, an Attack of the Show one, and they had
there's an X-Play channel.
Yes, they had to sort of divvy that stuff up. Yeah, it's weird. I kind of I know a lot of people were, like, critical of, like, some people were like, oh, all I wanted to see was the old crew, so, like, I was excited when I saw that they had, like, Sessler back and all that sort of stuff. And then other people were like, I don't know any of these young people, but then, of course, like, you can't launch a channel with a bunch of old fogies either.
No,
So like
no, not at
in
that
my head,
scale. Not at that scale.
no. And in my head, what I can appreciate some of what they were trying to do. Obviously, the execution and whatever the end product is subjective, but like I think if you launch something that big, you have to sort of have like a scattershot approach and see what works.
Yeah.
I just don't know if any of it did in the end. Like it never seemed like they got critical mass on. Like I thought Austin seemed to be really good when he was working on stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they ever got the numbers on some of their, like the Twitch numbers and the YouTube numbers always felt a little bit like, especially when like you're looking at it with like $ eyes, where you're like,
Right.
There's a lot of people producing these shows. Like
Yes.
these are expensive
Like
productions.
they've got
they're putting
office
together.
space. They've got this. That yes. That's kind of the audit I went through over the weekend after this came out. I was like, well, let's go look at like how many views were they getting on videos and all this other stuff. Like they got they scored an interview with Reggie, which seemed to be a very big deal.
Peter
for
Moore
them.
was there for one as well. Yeah.
And you go look at some of those and the view counts on those, and you think about like how many people work there. This is so I guess post layoffs and stuff like that. This is, according to Deadline, a few dozen employees and contract workers are affected by the shutdown. Comcast said it will assist them with outplacement and consider them for some internal opportunities. And yeah, I don't know. This thing also always looked incredibly expensive to me, but also doing it during a pandemic. And, there was a while there that they were in their studio. Then it seemed like that COVID got bad again. So then they were not in their studio again. And so just the whole thing seemed a little bit snake bit from the beginning, because it just didn't seem like there was a clear indicator of like, okay, when I think of G4, I think of a linear television network. I think about turning on my TV and catching it. What is it now? It never really felt like there was an answer, because there was always this thing of like, well, right now we're doing these shows, but eventually we want to, and next year we're going to be doing, and just that never happened. And so I don't know. I never really got a sense of what it was supposed to be. And then they had stuff like, Kevin Pereira was on there pushing some NFT shit, and it was just like,
yeah, that wasn't a good early headline for them for sure.
Just a number of things like that. They're just like, I'm not really sure. But I also, I came to really respect G4 over the course of their run. Like initially, I think, not knowing any of the people over there other than the X-Play crew, because they were originally GameSpot TV.
Right, GameSpot TV, yeah, of course.
It just looked like a bunch of suits making decisions and making bad ones about like what they thought the kids wanted to see about video games. And then we went down there and produced some shows with them. GameSpot did a week of Cinematech, which was typically a show where they just showed trailers. And so it was just like they just were cutting together thematic half hours of video game trailers and other stuff like that, and then doing like pop-up video style annotation around it.
Funny.
And then we went down there and actually wrote like a full week of those shows and put ourselves in them in a lot of cases and all that sort of stuff. And it was super fun. But also I got to meet a lot of the people who were down there doing it and realized like, oh man, everyone here cares so much about games, and they fucking love video games, and they love making great video game content, but they work for fucking Comcast. And so there's reruns of Bill Bellamy Cop Show and, like all cheaters and all the other stuff that just kind of clogged up that network. And so I don't know, I'm a little more easygoing on this than I certainly was then, but I was very much hardline about like, I think gaming information is strong enough to warrant its own thing. I don't want you to water it down with a bunch of fucking horse shit. And so it was always really disappointing to see that there were people fighting that fight as hard as they could. And not always winning all those fights, So you think about the E3 that like they were getting ready. It was the Halo trailer or something, and then G4 cut to commercial.
Oh my god!
As the trailer in an E3 press conference was starting, and like Sessler's there live, like going like, "What the fuck did you just do?" And
wow,
like they had negotiated to get the exclusive broadcast rights for this fucking thing, and then they fucking cut the commercial on them in the middle of the fucking thing, and that to me is G4. G4 to me was I always looked at it as like, there's a lot of people who really care about games, but they're doing it for this gigantic corporation that very much does not care about games.
Right.
And it was the same thing you saw with like the Spike TV Video Game Awards. When you go like, why does the Spike TV Video Game Awards have so many celebrities on it that don't care about games? It's because Spike TV thinks that that's how you get people to tune in, because they don't respect video games. And so that was always my thought on G4 was it was really run by people who did not respect video games, but that everyone on the ground was trying their fucking damnedest. And there's a lot of good fucking people there. I think a handful of them work at Epic now.
Right.
They went over there. But yeah, I don't know. It's so to me, G4 was always this really weird thing. So when they announced it was coming back, I was like, "You bringing back the Bill Bellamy show? Like what? You know what?
Yeah.
What the fuck what is G4?"
Yeah, everyone felt like there was a sort of I think, pretty unanimous feeling that it felt against the grain, which also I guess you can see as disruptive. Like, was it Venn? I think was the previous sort of big play of this. So clearly, like somebody
a fuckload of money,
right?
Yeah.
And this clearly, was a big investment and a big play. Like they weren't trying to make, a Rooster Teeth or a Kind of Funny or a Giant, you know what I mean? They were trying to. Clearly, there has been multiple people who thought that there is this, I don't know what it is, but this sort of like top of the media pyramid for video games position that nobody has really dominated and taken yet. That's what they seem to think. And like, if you look at IGN, for instance, and what they're doing, like they have a backbone of web traffic that comes from the much cheaper to create text. And they also, they're super diversified. They have YouTube. They, have some Twitch stuff, I know, but they also are very good on social.
Yeah.
But clearly, both of those companies thought that there's the top of this video pyramid. But video's so expensive, and like.
And if you don't have distribution for it, you're just like you're pissing in the wind because there's 100%. Hours and hours. There's just so much competition for video on the internet that like. Going and launching a new, even though they had their old YouTube channels that already had subscribers on them. And so they were kind of like theoretically tapping into something and they had the name brand and all this other stuff. It was a different enough thing that was presented and distributed in a different way. And I just don't think people ever found it. I think even people that would have theoretically been open to the idea of G4 coming out or open to the idea of the content that team was making, fuck if it was G4 or whatever. They just never found it because there was no marketing behind it. Like, I've seen it time and time again. Like these fucking big companies come in and just think that this shit fucking sells itself. And they're just like, you're just like, hey, what if we put some marketing muscle behind this? Then we could really get some eyeballs on it. Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? We can have another meeting on this topic? No, we're not. Okay, great. All right. I'll sit over here then. Fuck me. And like that story is as fucking old as time.
And Twitch being that sort of democratized thing, they're like, oh, if we build it, they will come. Probably comes into it. I think as well there is a brutality with the public nature of metrics that did not exist when G4 was around before. And I remember this affecting like GameSpot, for instance, too, where like suddenly if there were YouTube versions of videos or it was easier for media companies to obfuscate the true nature of their audience and the size of that audience and how engaged that audience was.
And what that audience was actually watching. It's like, you got 1 million people a day, but what are they actually looking at?
100%. And I think if you had a closed box video system, like for instance, GameSpot back in the day, or you're going out on, Nielsen numbers are so weird. Like you can fudge that stuff to a certain amount. When people can just go on your Twitch archive or YouTube channel and see how many people watched the thing, it completely, I think it's trouble sometimes for companies like that to when it comes to like ad sales and stuff.
Totally. If you're looking at an operation and going like, okay, you have what, like 12 people here doing this thing, streaming on Twitch, and you're getting beat by a factor of 10 by one person in a bedroom in Canada. What the fuck are we paying for? Like, why are we, because you're not getting enough numbers for us to put big sponsors against this content. Like it's not, like you're not giving the sales team anything to really work with. But at the same time, I don't think any of that is the fault of the people who were fucking making the content. You can only do so much when you're in that role, right? I mean, you have the resources you have. You're going to go out there and do the best you can. But at the end of the day, especially trying to launch something new in this day and age when Google's SEO is so set in stone with a lot of this fucking, it's like you said, IGN. Like, I mean, IGN has only gotten bigger as far as I know. They're far and away the leader when it comes to your com scores or whatever. I don't think anyone else is even fucking trying anymore.
Hey, talk about like fandom like that. There's a company whose entire like business is based on a great SEO and really having a lot of ads.
I was trying to fucking, so I was looking up trying to see if there was a release date for Frozen 3 or if it had been announced, or like what's the status of Frozen 3, because that's something I'm going to need to know.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, Jeff. I also live in that world of needing to know when the next Frozen is out, for goodness sake.
The first result I got was some fucking fandom site that was like it was all fake shit. So it was like people writing fan fiction about Disney stuff, but that fan fiction included a release date for Frozen 3. And so that SEO'd just enough in their weird fucking sick game that if you go look for a fucking release date for Frozen 3, it's like, yeah, it's November 2024. Yeah, no, it's gonna debut at this theater and then it's gonna go wide on this date because someone decided they wanted to start a wiki devoted to fake fucking Disney shit. And so that's the number one result that I got. And I was just like, what the fuck? But also the thing you run into with that stuff is wiki traffic, forum traffic. A lot of that type of traffic is generally viewed as low quality traffic. So selling ads against it, you're really just like, you're just throwing up whatever display you can get away with. And it's not high priority. You're not selling big ticket sponsorships there. So it's like, yeah, you got a fuck ton of traffic, but no one wants to directly buy it because they don't fucking care about it. And so you're better off having, let's say, a site in the middle of that you could anchor all that stuff to and say like, oh, here's something that at least appears to be premium in some capacity. Maybe we could sell some sponsorship packages around that.
Right. Or what if you, for instance, had the numbers of a pretty popular wiki website that you could just like add into your, games reporting website and just say they're all the same numbers. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I don't know if pretty popular is the word I'd use on that, but
yeah. Well,
when it comes to that specific aspect of the traffic, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, it's I don't know. Like it's all a sick shell game now. It has been forever. But
maybe it's harder now.
And meanwhile, IGN still seems like they're doing fine, but last time I looked, they had not hired a new editor in chief. Had they? Since Tina left?
Oh, you're right. Yeah. I wonder if
they reorganized or what
John
they.
Is, yeah. Don't know. Yeah. They seem to be doing all right. As far as who knows? It definitely feels like there's a bit of a squeeze coming in the media worlds.
I mean, totally. You look at Fanbyte.
There always is, right?
Yeah. No, Fanbyte, you look at it and you go like, it's very easy to see a world where Tencent wakes up one morning and goes, "What? We have what?
Totally.
Why do we have this?"
I was very disappointed for everyone, but part of my job is constantly looking at everyone else and seeing, judging, the health of my company against everyone else, and that was one that I always was like, all right, they probably need to get some of these numbers up. I imagine for the amount of money that apparently from my understanding, everyone was treated well and worked and got paid well over there. Yeah. So but that comes at a cost, right? It's tricky. And obviously we had, who else was it? There was a big load of layoffs at Future, I think, as well.
Right. Yes.
There was.
Yep.
It sucks. I don't know what the landscape's like for those people as well. Like, I hope everyone's able to. Because I don't know if there's much hiring happening everywhere else or anything, or
it just seems like very bad times out there.
A lot of very talented people who are currently like, is it Elise who works over at she was at Waypo for a while as well, I think, and who's stuck without a visa. Like it's those types of scenarios, that really. I mean, I'm sensitive to that because that's the position I would have been in. Or maybe when the Red Venture stuff happened, it was the first thing I thought of was like Tamora and Lucy as well, that type of thing, because you're sensitive to it. But yeah, it sucks for. And now because of this G4 thing, there's now a couple more dozen people who, at least the one thing that makes me feel better is I was looking at some of their LinkedIns and stuff. A lot of these people will get jobs in television. They're in LA. So hopefully it's not as bad as when you write about video games. It's like, you're kind of,
you have another skill in another line of work
tricky.
and all of that other stuff. Yeah, no, it's been, I feel like it's been quietly brutal for a very long time. I think about the various buy and sell conversations that, came up over the years. But now it's very loudly brutal, and I don't think it's going to, I don't really think it's going to stop, because I just don't think I don't think the ad money is there to support these types of operations anymore. Like I look at IGN and just think like, man, I wonder if they're really covering all their bases as well as they need to be, or if they're kind of up against it a little bit too. Because you know, video games feel different now. Like the big game that then goes out and buys massive ad packages on the homepage of every video game website on launch day, like that shit doesn't exist. You think about like E3 comes around and Ratchet and Clank is on the fucking top of GameSpot, or like, and you know, for years it was like Samsung and some of these other big mainstream.
That was where all the money was, right? Was
exactly.
Like,
yeah, they would make
that's
money.
why you prepared for 6 months for that thing.
Yeah, because E3 would, you know, would get you there.
And this year especially, like what that you're 100% right, and then factor in the fact that we're in sort of like the second phase of the COVID hangover, and there just isn't like they cannot wait for God of War to come out.
Oh God, yeah.
They haven't had.
But
since,
also, like I wonder,
Cyberpunk, maybe?
Yeah, Cyberpunk probably. But is God of War going to spend the way that Sony would have spent in the past? Because is that ad space as lucrative or as useful as it used to be, or should they just go out and buy ads on YouTube and Twitch and you know, where are those eyeballs? They're not. Is it the IGN homepage? Like, no.
But at least there's
pages on it. Like IGN in aggregate is huge,
right?
But like,
yeah, it's all like TikTok, or it's Insta. The other thing is like the ability to generate content around those tentpole games. But also, in a way, Ragnarok is probably not a great fit for that, because it's a single player linear. You know what I mean? If for instance, if Overwatch 2 was hitting hard, which I don't, it feels like the sentiment is very much like this is just Overwatch, and it doesn't have that big bang.
Yeah,
like that's a game at least you could do like, you know, 20 characters. I remember me and Chris and Andy, I think we produced a bunch of character. I think Chris and Andy did most of it. Like character, like how guides. Do you use Symmetra guides? You know, and they did great, and they put them up on YouTube, and they did traffic for years. Yeah, like those moments for those sites, there just doesn't seem, you know, in a world in which Vampire Survivor is in the conversation. I guess Elden Ring was the last one. The only big one they had this year, where you could make all that stuff around it. Yeah, and Veggie Video over on YouTube probably got all the views. So.
Yeah, and you know, and you know, it leads to the editorial end of that is like, well, okay, you need to create your own tentpoles. So you're like, okay, we've got Game of the Year. Right. If the E3 is not happening, can we come up with something else? Can we do this? Can we do our own big live stream? Can we do that? But it seems like a lot of sites, when it came to just like, we needed another tentpole, or like, what's a really big tentpole for us? They all looked around and said, Amazon Prime Day.
Right. Yeah.
If we really hit that hard with our affiliate links and write a lot of stories about what we think the best deals are, that's going to make us more money than a game launch. That's going to make us more money than. It's like everything is so fucked up now.
I forgot about that. Do you remember the Christmas like holiday gift guides? Yeah, they were a huge revenue thing at GameSpot. I remember
back in the day, we were doing like dads and grads shit around Father's Day and you know, graduation and so you would do your like, you know, here's our picks for. But, you know, the affiliate business was not nearly as robust as it is now. Yeah. Though it's probably a little bit more cutthroat now than it used to be, because
the
that
shell
was
game again.
Yeah, right. And how can you trick Google into serving your affiliate links above everyone else's? And it's just I don't know. I guess the takeaway is I'm glad to not have to fucking be a part of that. And thanks to everyone for keeping us solid. Over here at patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann or patreon.com/NoClip.
Thank you.
And keeping us out of that disgusting thing. I was going to say cesspool, but that seemed harsh, but also
you sit in it long enough because your own filth gets added to it. So it becomes one. It's a matter of longevity.
I was the filthiest. I sat in it for longer than a person should.
You did, yeah. You've sat in it for longer than most.
Yeah. Let's see. Last little bits here. Some dates and delays here. Star Trek Resurgence has been delayed to April 2023. That's a story-driven thing from there's some ex-Telltale people putting that together. That seemed interesting. I saw that back in June at Keeley's thing.
Looks neat. Looks like it's doing like what, especially with Picard out at the moment. There's a lot of conversation about kind of what good Star Trek writing is, like what Star Trek was, the like sort of Planet of the Week.
Mhm.
You know, the politics, the dialogue. It seems like they're going in that direction, not the sort of like, I don't know, NYPD Blue bombast of of Picard. You know?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man Miles Morales got announced. They confirmed a date for that, November 18th. If you remember correctly, this is the good Spider-Man game.
Did you not like the other one?
It was bloated, you know, like the stealth, the other stuff. Like Miles Morales, I think is just a better, more interesting story. But also, I think they got really good at realizing what was great about that first game and honing all that stuff down to be like, yeah, this is gonna be a shorter game, but it's gonna be fucking badass start to finish.
You're right. There was a lot of like open world busy work in that first one.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how that loads on PCs, because that was one of those first like early PS5 games you were like, oh my god, the city is there already.
Right.
And what we end up seeing on I mean, obviously that'll vary from system to system, but yeah, I'll be curious to see how that runs. That I guess that Spider-Man remastered port that came out a while ago, people seem to be mostly happy with that port. A lot of people played it on Steam Deck. You know, it was definitely runnable there as well. So
we've suddenly gotten really used to Sony first-party games on PC.
Yeah,
it's wild.
Yeah, Elden Ring. I mean, it takes forever for them to get there. But where's Bloodborne?
Yeah,
I think the answer there is it's just not an IP that they own 100% of, and so probably a tricky, or it's probably takes some work to make that happen.
Yeah, and who gets to do it is the other. You know, From probably don't want to have to do that, and maybe they also don't want to have anyone else do that.
Right.
You know, that type of thing. And then Blue Point probably only want to do it if it's a redo. They don't want it to, you know, I bet it's a lot of that shit, or it's just like nobody's.
Yeah,
there's no elegant fit for it, maybe.
And I think
it's been in development.
Busy with other stuff, so I think it's maybe it's also a case of just like when they finally came to the table and thought about who they would give it to, no one was even available. So
yeah.
So who knows? All right, that's going to do it for the news. Why don't we get into some emails?
Let's do it.
I've got a button for that. No, I've got a news button. I don't have an email button. I can hit this button. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address that you can send your emails into, and I will take a look at them, and so on and so forth. Let's see here. Ben in Boston writes in and says, 2 years in, how do you feel about the DualSense? Is its potential being utilized? Do you still think it has as much potential as you did when you first tried it? Will Astro's Playroom never be topped? Yeah.
I've stopped hoping for that, I think.
Yeah.
And anytime any first party game does something interested in it, I'm like reminded that it does that. You know?
Yeah. And sometimes it's a hassle. It makes the controller rattle. So like I'm playing with a ring on, and so the controller will like rattle against my ring in a loud way that I can't have it on if I have a baby sleeping in the room.
Right.
And that's a weird thing to have to consider, but that's the noise of that controller ends up being a weird thing. I think Astro's Playroom was awesome, and I think if every game was built in a way that it made sense to take advantage of all those things, it could be cool. But you know, it's just like a lot of the other PS5 features, the activity cards and all that stuff, where a lot of third parties are just gonna like code to the lowest common denominator. Like, you know, hey, all these PS5 games have load times. You know, all the talk prior to the release of the system about like, oh, we're going to eliminate load times and do this and that. It's like, yeah, you kind of did in Ratchet and in Spider-Man, but just about any other game I'm playing on that platform loads like a motherfucker. It's not, you know, like, is it faster? Sure, because it's a fucking SSD. It's as fast as my PC has been for years. So congratulations on catching up, but it ain't. They're not taking advantage of it.
It's as low as they need it to be for everyone.
Exactly.
But like you said, coding to lowest common denominator, you know, everything's out on everything now. So, you know, your success on PlayStation 5 does not depend on whether or not you have like those cards or some integrated DualShock stuff. So if it's not, they're not going to waste time on it. Like making games is complicated and hard enough without using resources on that stuff. So
it almost seems like Sony has to, you know, advocate for those features and incentivize developers to use them one way or the other through money or by force. Like, we're not going to let you ship unless you take advantage of one of these four things.
Yeah, I bet their cert process has like some sort of like, you need to have this many cards. I forgot about the cards thing. The only place I ever thought that was handy, I think it was Elden Ring. It was Demon Souls, remake, the one that
Yeah.
Blue Point did. You could just jump straight to an area from the. That was pretty neat, actually.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it also felt like a hack. Like it didn't
Right.
feel elegant.
It's like they hacked fast travel into the game in a way that
Totally.
it shouldn't have, and
it didn't feel. It felt weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Harold from Saskatchewan writes, says, when I was in university, I took a movie class where we watched movies from various times and of different genres. Many movies I wouldn't have normally watched of my own volition, such as Birth of a Nation and Metropolis as a couple examples. We also watched several Hitchcock films and more contemporary films. I quite enjoyed being exposed to older and sometimes more obscure movies, as well as learning about facets of movies I took for granted, such as editing, lighting, etc. We looked at movies with long single shots that would have been extremely challenging to act and film, and others that were made up of several angles and shots edited together. Do you think we will ever see a 4-credit video game appreciation class? And would you ever take up a gig at your local college? Could you picture yourself in front of a lecture theater drawing out a diagram of a Mr. Do level? There's probably something to be said that this is something Paul Barnett talked about a while ago, is the idea of like the golden age of video games not really being a real thing, and the idea that like you don't really need to. There are probably a handful of games over the years that are useful to go back and look at, but in terms of like learning how to make games in a modern way, that's probably a lot of stuff you picked up along the way from the games that cribbed from Doom and Quake and Half-Life and whatever else over the years. And so I wonder, like, would a video game appreciation class actually be useful, or would it be kind of just wankish and you're just like, here's me playing, I'm playing through Bruce Lee in front of a class full of people and going, check this shit out. Like, that's my full notes for the lecture. Check this shit out. Isn't this dope?
How much of third level education is that type of wankish nonsense?
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, you're not wrong.
I can see from like a historical or preservationist or some sort of a sociological perspective. I don't know, some other aspect other than it being like design class, it being useful in some ways. I think two of the projects that we've had the most like fun doing that has kind of gotten that way is it's third time I'm referencing today, the Demon Souls remake thing we did with Blue Point, and then the Bloodborne PSX doc we did with Lilith, because both of those are games that you get to, they're both from actually, yeah, but both of those are games that you get to analyze under a modern lens and look at, like in the case of Bloodborne PSX especially, the hardware of the day dictating design and things that we have lost in the interim, and are there aspects of that design that are good, even though we don't need to do them that way anymore? And Lilith, she was talking about stuff like the classic. Do you remember that? It was one of my favorite parts in the doc is when she talks about the early PlayStation 1 games having 3D inventories. Like, because 3D, everything was done 3D, like Tomb Raider and like, these games where you just had to show stuff in 3D because it was, you know, especially when stuff wasn't moving, like on a PlayStation 1, because if you had the model moving and the camera moving, you got all that dither stuff,
all that weird jitter and all that stuff. Oh, man. Yes,
but that's
so many
not
games
necessarily just looking back, right? That's kind of looking back with regards to, modernizing it or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and just like the weird quirks that, because, in a lot of ways, I think the 3D being such a new toy for people made them want to do stuff like that. And certainly in the US, Sony pressured a lot of developers to shy away from 2D games completely, which I wonder if that led to them going, well, let's make the inventory 3D because otherwise, maybe Sony won't like it or whatever.
That's true. I guess early PlayStation 1 games, there's not many 2 I guess Parappa, but that's also 3D,
and that's not that early in the grand scheme. It's the first year of the Twisted Metal 1 and Warhawks of the world. Wipeout. Agile Warrior, like these,
it must have been a fighting game. There must have been a 2D fighting game.
Yes, so that was there was Street Fighter Alpha 1 and there, I believe, Mortal Kombat 3 were launch games, which them being ports probably exactly. But generally speaking, like Sony did not, they wanted to show off the power of the PlayStation for marketing reasons. They wanted to really stick it to Sega. They wanted to stick it to the Saturn as hard as they could. and launching that way enabled them to go, look at all this shit. Isn't this crazy? Saturn can't fucking do this. And,
It was crazy.
Yeah. And it was crazy. Yeah. Let's see. Nathan in Calgary writes in, this is sort of adjacent to what we were just talking about. Do you think a publisher could try to create a canon of important video games akin to what the Criterion Collection kind of brands itself as for movies, like a cross-publisher, cross-developer releases with bonus materials, particularly old foundational stuff like Mule or Rogue that influenced later games and perhaps have people who derived ideas from those games provide commentary? Something like that exists, or have attempts been made that I don't know about? Like that, the digital Eclipse stuff is sort of brushing against that because they're going out there and trying to do as much bonus material as they can get their hands on. And that Blizzard collection I always point back to is like a recent, like that one was awesome.
And Drew worked on that as well.
He did. Yes. Yeah. And I wish that the Ninja Turtles one that they just did had more of that treatment.
Right.
That the developers were available. Those probably would have been all translated interviews, but like I would have loved to have just heard people talk about what it was like making games for a fucking Game Boy.
Yeah.
But like a Criterion Collection bonus, like, here's Mule, here's Rogue. We're going to sell you a copy of Rogue in this really nice box with all this extra stuff. Like, no,
It's hard. I've often wondered if like we could like, if we had like a white label no clip or something, right? Where you could like partner with Limited Run or somebody or like IM8, you know what I mean? Like that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think actually is the garbage pail thing, because that was on
that's IM8-bit.
Yeah. So maybe there's so I guess that's what they're doing. Like that's how you do it, I guess, is that because like my answer to this is two answers after this. One is that it's actually very difficult to get people to talk eloquently about stuff that they made 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Often, especially through a modern lens, a lot of times like it's even earlier than that. It's hard for people to recollect. They're also kind of self-conscious about it, especially if it's a popular game, because some of the developers, like fans, will know these games way more than the person who made them oftentimes.
Right. Yeah.
Because they've just made like 20 games since. So, I don't remember.
Like it was Thursday. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like when it went gold? Fucking, I don't know. We got drunk.
Or something that like they did on a Wednesday that ended up being the iconic thing about that game. They didn't know it was at the time and all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of tricky to capture that sometimes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, like, we have been approached over the years at NoClip. We've never done any corporate work. And one of the things that was always a bummer was that, like, people would approach us and we'd say, we don't do this, but we know some people, you should talk to them about it. And then it was like a cool project. And that would have been fun to work on and whatever. And then it never got made because it just, like, it was too hard, or they didn't, whatever it was. There was no, no one was excited.
Well, do you ever think about doing, I mean, like as a white label thing, as a separate thing that's like...
Yeah. Like that's what I was alluding to earlier a little bit.
Yeah.
Was kind of like, I've been trying to figure out a way of doing it that doesn't, like, the biggest thing is like, how do you possibly do that and remain a well, not objective, but like
a neutral component in the story, right? Like,
how do you do that while also running something like NoClip, right?
Right.
And like trying to understand, like, what is NoClip? Is it a journalistic outlet? I don't really know if it is. Is it education? Kind of. Is it preservation? For sure. There's journalism aspects to it for sure.
Yeah.
Would people, if this stuff was done? So that's been the sort of the big, how do you do that? And also, what projects do you do? If you're doing white label, is it that type of retrospective stuff? Is it
right?
Is it like,
or are you embedded with the team as they're going gold?
Right.
Like, is it their new project that you don't even know if people are going to want to watch it or not?
And those we've had loads of those where we've had ones, because we obviously did Hades, right? So we were embedded with Hades. We're embedded with Hyperlight Breaker. We get no money at all.
Yeah.
We fund that all ourselves. They have no right of reply over we have checks with them for legal reasons on some stuff, but like the videos are ours. And it's a very privileged sort of like way to be able to work, quite fucking frankly. But we have had big studios and other smaller studios come to us and say, we would like to do that. And then we go there, and then all their legal departments and people go fucking crazy because they're like, what? Yeah. You can't just have these people here. But it's like, if we had something but to do that, to do those terms, you would need to have some sort of agreements in place, and then it can't go on NoClip. NoClip needs to just be our lens, our pure thing.
Right.
So then if it's not that, what is it? So that's been, and how do you possibly run two of these things side by side? But So that's been the puzzle for me to try and figure out. But in a way, I was kind of like, instead of having all of our patrons and gamers pay for everything, it would be quite funny to have big game publishers pay for essentially production stuff.
Is that the name for your new operation? Quite funny. Is that what you're calling it?
Exactly. Yeah. We're going to be doing paid content on NoClip, and no, it's not. So, but like, yeah, trying to find a way to do that has kind of been the puzzle. I think I figured it out, but I'm not quite ready.
I think like my take on that these days, at least. So like I'm doing what I'm doing, and it resembles very much what I've always done. But like in the back of my mind, I kind of want to be able to like throw away a lot of the decisions I've made over the last 15, 20 years about what's acceptable and what's not, and at least be able to approach these conversations fresh and think about like, because there's stuff like voice acting in a game. Right. Something for a very long time, the answer was a steadfast absolutely not.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, conflict of interest. But now it's like I'm not really doing reviews. I'm not currently on Metacritic or anything like that. And so I'm just trying to think about like, yeah, what are the true parameters of this thing? Because I look at that and go like, that might be really fun to do. And it might be really fun if I could shoot some behind the scenes stuff and present that to people for, on Patreon or something like that. And so I'm trying to, we tried to do something like this when Def Jam Rap Star was getting announced. And it did not.
You did have the biggest rap act in Petaluma according to MP3.com.
That's right, so, exactly. Yeah. So when they partnered with me for that, I don't think they realized how seasoned a professional they were getting. But like the original thing there was because they were going to announce that game at a Konami press conference in San Francisco, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to come up on stage and rap?"
Right.
And I was like, "Fucking yes." And I was like, "Wait a minute, no." And I had to sit there and think about it. And I was like, "Well, okay." Can we get into the press conference early and shoot some behind the scenes stuff and maybe do some interviews? Because I think it would be really fun and like from a journalistic end of like what goes into these things.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, totally. Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we'll give you, whatever you need. Great. Okay. So we get over there, we get there early, and it's a Konami run press conference. We made the deal with the development end of it, not Konami. And so Konami was like, what the fuck are these guys doing in here? And they were like, okay, you can come in and rehearse, and then you got to go. And don't film anything.
It's like, suddenly not cool anymore. It's like, you can, the
vibes
are off.
The vibes are off. And so I was like, shit, man. Well, if I come away with this, with me on stage rapping with Jamie King, formerly of Rockstar, rapping fucking nothing but a G thing, then that will be worth it. And then they ended up not giving me the footage. Tracy Peterson was there filming it independently for someone, and he originally was like, "Yeah, I got the footage. I'll get it to you." I never beat down his door to get it from him. But they were like, "Oh, the footage didn't come out. We lost it. It's a whole thing." And yeah. And so I never got my hands on any of it. And so imagine how that looks: a room full of assembled journalists from around the Bay Area, if not the world, and then who fucking walks out on stage to demo the game for them but me? I felt like a fucking clown. I was like, it was super fun.
Yeah.
And I met Kevin Lyles, who was the head of Def Jam, and like, pleaded with him to get me a record deal and all this other stuff. But I felt like I had been played, and I don't think anyone like did it deliberately. Like the people involved are people I'm still like cool with to this day. I don't think it was
good natured.
Yeah. I think just the nature of things kind of turned, and I kind of got left fucking twisting in the wind as the least important part of that whole process. But yeah, like I felt like fucking shit. And I was like, man, I can't fucking believe I did this and I'm not getting anything out of it. Like all these people probably think I'm a fucking clown. And then at the end of it, people were like, man, that was really fun. Good. That was awesome. You did it. No one was like, hey, look at you, you fucking shill. And I was like, oh, right. It was this feeling of like, right, maybe I'm not, maybe I take this more seriously than everyone else does. And that's probably a good thing, but is it? And it just,
to have the buffer there.
Yeah. So I just think about like what would be cool content for people and what would be the right thing to do there. And I think I'm open to doing different shit than I would have been 6 months ago.
Yeah, and exciting for you as well. Like,
totally. Yes.
New avenues. When we did the Hades stuff, that's obviously a situation that only happens because like Greg Gerstmann, basically, right? Because like Greg is no bullshit, and he can smell if someone's doing it for the wrong reasons, and he was cool, and he, it all made sense. But like, my problem is that like we had so much fun doing that. It's like it was like the most access you'll get, and whenever we've tried to get more access, except for Breaker, actually, we're doing some pretty crazy stuff with them, in terms of the publisher and everything. It's going to be really interesting, but it's hard to get to. Like, I would like. It's been 6 years of us doing this. I've realized now we're basically the only people. Really, there are people like Area 5 and other folks out there who make documentaries and are fantastic video production people. But when it comes to just like pumping out video game documentaries, we're basically the only people who do it, and people keep asking us to do it, and then nothing ever comes of it. And like, yes, I would like to make a movie. You know what I mean? Yes, I would like to. I can't do that with Patreon money. I wouldn't do that with Patreon money because it would seem I want to cover indie games and do all the like this rich work that we're doing. But yeah, I'll take someone else's money to fucking make something like groundbreaking where we get all the access because everyone's got, a sort of got skin in the game. Like, sure, that would be rad.
I think hopefully we'll see, but it feels like we're coming up on a time again where that type of investment is not out of the question. Because I'll tell you, as someone who kind of sniffed around, who spent, some time in as early as 2020, but really a lot of 2021 and late 2020, like thinking about what do investors look like in this day and age in, say, launching a new video game coverage, a new editorial operation and all that sort of stuff. It was at a time when everyone, like the number one question was like, what's your Web3 strategy? Like, what's your...
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right? Because everyone was crazy for that shit. And so it was just like, it was this deflating thing of just like, well, okay, there's obviously... there's no investment money to be had at a scale that's going to like make a difference or whatever. So, so fuck that.
Totally.
But it seems like we're coming through on the other end of that a little bit now that stuff has crashed out a little bit. Then maybe you'll have some more sensible investors, but also I don't know that sensible investors would want to invest in a video game editorial operation.
What's Shelby doing?
He's got an AI thing he's doing.
Oh really?
Yeah,
okay.
He's got a thing. It's cool.
I hear what you're saying. That got in the way basically because you needed to, especially if maybe VCs were less inclined that way. But if it was any, investment firm with shareholders, they wanted to have some sort of edge on that stuff.
Yes, definitely. And so I think some of that edge has been filed off, but maybe not all of it. So yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, and then also there's a ton of people out there that just sold their studio to Tencent and they got a bunch of money. So what are they going to do with it? Might as well invest in a video game editorial operation. That's what I say.
It's funny. I'm surprised people don't. Like Ubisoft obviously have their thing, and we know a bunch of folks who were over there for a long time.
Yeah.
I often find it odd that others don't. I'm not mad on it. You know what I mean? It's pure conflict, but like, I don't know why people don't do it. Like, it seems like you basically like, we stand here as two people, I think, who have fought, and I've always looked up to you for this with regard, is that like when I would have, especially when I was a fan of GameSpot, it very much seemed like at a certain point, be it because the money is shit or because you have a family or because whatever it is, but people get forced out.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who are of that age, and it was really important to me not to try and stay in it as much as possible. And if I had to be my own boss to do it, then that's the way it had to be. And obviously you're one of the very few elder statespeople of this industry. But like, I guess it does happen where there's a lot of people, and we've just been talking about it, all the folks at Fanbyte, all these people are very, very good at their jobs. Yeah. And why studios don't spin up more? I know they have PR people, and some of them have like some sort of rockstar propaganda or whatever. They have their own thing, but like, why some of them don't have a bit more of that type of presence? I'm not a fan of it necessarily, but like, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So just you bring in a couple of editors to write a blog, like Ubisoft was doing that for a long time. They're still.
I think they still have the blog. They have a video team. I know Andy Baum and Chris Waters.
Right. Yeah. And there was the EA team that I think Jeff Green was on for a brief period of time. Like back in the day, that was a long time ago. That was that was one of the first bellwethers of like, oh, this shit is going to change and it's going to get fucking bad fast. And
right,
you know, the era of the exclusive preview is going away because now all these publishers are just going to do it themselves. Like they're just going to start interviewing. Like EA was interviewing themselves. It was just like, what do you think about The Sims? I think it's good. Really? Oh wow. You know, and it was literally content like that. And it's just like, what the fuck? But I think that it's, you know, like, yeah, they can do that. And I think that makes sense for a variety of reasons, but it's also probably cheaper to just go rent an influencer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And
they don't, yeah, you're right. And then you've got access to, it's kind of short term versus long term, right? Because like if you go with an influencer, you've instant access to a big audience, whereas if you build something yourself, then you're fostering that audience. You know what I mean? Like your YouTube channel has 3 million views now because that's where all your fans are,
right?
You know
and everyone's going to point to it because that's where you're debuting the information. Like Kotaku, you know, that was the big struggle. I talked about it before, but like that was the big struggle was about trailers. And I talked about this clandestine meeting we had. It was like Justin Calvert was still there at GameSpot at the time, where we went up the street to IGN and Sessler came and everyone sat down and said, these publishers keep wanting to put trailers up on their own YouTube channels and not letting us debut them on ours. What are we going to do? And I was like, just refuse to cover it. Because if you're not going to point to their stuff, if you're not going to point your audience at their trailer, how are they ever going to build it? Just say, well, we're not going to cover it unless you send it to us and let us put it up. Like, play hardball with them. Fuck it. Like, if this is is this the line in the sand where you think you're fucked on the other end of it? You better fight hard now. And no one did. And they got fucking walked. And now look at them. You know, look at the state of like preview coverage in this business. It's fucking dramatically different. Yeah, it's way more controlled. The number of preview builds just getting sent out on a regular basis is like a fucking 10th of what it was 15 years ago. And you know, it's crazy. You know, and I don't know that would have worked. I think it was, you know, you're fighting a rising tide. Like it's, you know, the publishers were going to do what they wanted to do regardless. And I don't think that the traditional outlets would have been able to win that fight long term. But like, you know, you have to be willing to fucking play hardball with some of these people. That was something that we would have to do very rarely. You know, there's a lot of relationship management involved in working with publishers in a previews and reviews capacity. It's why we split it up. It's why I only handled the reviews, because it created a good cop, bad cop scenario where I was the bad cop saying these games are fucking shit. And then the previews person would be the good cop going like, well, you know, what's your next game coming out? Let's just secure a top slot for this and that. And, you know, and whatever. And it just, I don't know. Like that wasn't a perfect fucking system either, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. Like to me, it just, all of it speaks to the relevance of like a traditional video game website in any way, shape, or form. Like why do it? What's it there for? Who does it serve? What's the audience actively looking for that stuff? Unless you're providing something of value and substance, like guides, you know, like actual things that people are going to Google and go like, what the fuck happened here? How do I beat this? Here's a video that's going to show me how to beat it. And
that's so much harder in a world in which, you know, you've experts for every game now exist on YouTube or Twitch or, you know,
and you're fighting against them. I think that the number one video on the YouTube channel for Giant Bomb is still Matt Kessler talking about some Skyrim achievement.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, it's like some million plus view thing that's just like, yep. Originally, we had the interns locked away in a room creating guide content. And they just didn't do enough of it. We were not committed to it in a way that would have succeeded.
You needed scale or something.
But it was probably the right idea.
Yeah.
In some sick way.
The FAQ farm downstairs.
Right. Yeah. It's just a weird whole thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it's just such a, I love this business even as it's taken its weird twists and turns, and it's a weirder place every day. This year especially, I feel like, you know, obviously like I went through a lot of crazy shit this year, but like I think when you talk about that COVID hangover and what AAA games are coming out, like AAA development and like the big tentpole releases that you would be able to hang your hat on, I think that's a partial, like that's going to impact all these websites that are there to cover games, because people want to see the big games. And so if the big games are getting delayed, if the big games are not being shown in a preview fashion that allows for video, and so there's no video on YouTube, there's none of this and that, until the very end, and then everyone floods with their same review and their same shit. Like, we're gonna get to a point where the only person left standing that has a staff, like a big staff at their disposal, is Greg. And Keeley, Keeley, I get, like you know, in a different way, but like, you know, that's like, I think, like, you look at that studio, it's fucking beautiful.
Oh,
like,
it's nuts. It's unbelievable.
I haven't been there, but like, I looking at the shots of it and some of the stuff they did, I was looking at it just going like, man, that's the studio I was fighting to get for 20 fucking years, man.
Right.
Let's get a place with some high ceilings that is not just office space. Let's get something that feels like it's dedicated to make fucking actual content. Let's fucking like build a place that feels custom suited for making good shit about games. And it was always like,
oh yeah, on the first floor.
Oh god, the first floor studio. The one that we got, or the one that because remember when we were going to move buildings? Were you still there for that?
I don't think so.
You might have been gone for that. We were going to move buildings up the street, and San Francisco likes to have public use areas carved out, and so one of the pitches was that the main studio, the only major studio for everyone, was going to be a first floor studio with a window facing the street, like the fucking Today Show.
Very cool.
So that people could come up and, you know, press their bodies against it or whatever. And I was fucking so psyched. I was like, yes, I will go outside. I will fucking interview these people. We will invite them in to fucking come in and play fucking video games. Like, yes, I will make this a public space. Like, let's fucking go. And it was too much money or whatever. So they just renovated what they had instead.
Right.
Renovated. But yeah, CBS was originally going to do all that. And then they backed away from it for money. Money is always the answer, but like, yeah, that was my first floor studio dream, was to have the fucking insane, strange, weird, like, window to the world, and be able to take advantage of that. I think that would have been fun as hell, but you know, alas, there's like, you're right. But yeah, like their studio looks fucking incredible. Like, I look at that thing and just like, yep, that's. Like, when I was pushing for a long time, there was even talk for a while about like, let's get the fuck out of San Francisco. Let's move to the East Bay and get a warehouse and build real studio space. And there were people that were like, yeah, we should definitely do that. But it was never like a conversation with money attached. So of course everyone was like, fuck yeah. And then we got bought and all those people left. So what are you gonna do? But yeah, man, I fucking more power to them. Like they're fucking killing it, man. It's awesome to see like that they've found. That's
a diversified business, because like if you like, they do solid Twitch, they don't do crazy. They have solid YouTube multiple, they don't do crazy. They have solid Patreons, 2 of them, they don't do crazy either. But they have enough of that there. They have a backbone of you know, obviously they're in the influencer world, right? So they're doing ad deals and they're doing promotions and they're doing hosting all that sort of stuff.
Which I don't know if that ends up being part of their thing, or if they're hosting gigs or part of the main thing, or if that's something they just keep on their own.
That's a good point. Now they are the biggest studio. They have the biggest studio in San Francisco for a lot of that stuff, so they probably can.
Yeah. I meant like hosting other people's events, like going and hosting a Microsoft event, or you know, like,
you're right. I'm not sure if that's Greg or if that's right. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, and like I think that's the other side of it is they do employ a lot of people, and they give people chances. You know what I mean? Like they've employed a lot of people out of their community. They're always like Greg's always trying to hustle to get people who've been axed onto the show. You know what I mean? Like you can try to not like those guys if you want, and people do, but they're, you know, they're fucking doing it. Like
they're making it happen.
And they're nice chaps.
Yeah.
They're really nice chaps.
And in this day and age, like it's very hard to make shit happen at that scale. With 100%. With that size of staff and all that other stuff. Like if you look at this business, like look at the size of the outlets, fucking G4. Comcast couldn't make it work.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
Warner, is it Warner own Rooster Teeth at the moment?
And they still do. Like that thing is imploding in one way or another.
Oh, boy.
You know, whatever.
Yeah.
Send them some more Pip Boys. And like
forgot about that.
I will never fucking forget about that. And yeah, man, but like I look at kind of funny is that hybrid operation of like they've found a way to make it work for them. And you can say like, oh, I don't like that they do these hosting gigs because it's too close or this or that. And like, I get it. Like totally, that's stuff that I look at and go like, I don't know that I would do that, but it works for them, and more power to them, man. Like I said, in this day and age of watching it get increasingly more difficult to keep an operation afloat, and I don't think we're done seeing outlets get fucking shut the fuck down. By a long shot. I think that what they're doing is keeping people employed and building a sound business, and I think that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's right that audiences should be critical of that stuff.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I think we should be self-critical. I certainly am with all the sort of ideas that I'm spinning around. But in a world in which Donkey is publishing games, maybe there are no rules anymore.
Right. I mean, that was always the thing, right? Is, you know, the audience would always say, I don't trust the nasty video game media. I trust my friend, influencer X, because they kick it to me straight. It's like, meanwhile, they're doing 3 sponsored streams a week and all this other stuff. And it's just like, that was another one of those, like, I'm just shaking my head going like, and meanwhile, you know, we're just getting fucking shit nonstop about like, I can't believe how biased you are against Sony and this and that. And you're obviously taking money. Like, no, if we were fucking taking as much money as you claim we were, the staff would be 3 times as fucking big. Are you fucking kidding me? We're barely fucking making it over here. Give me a fucking break. So like just the very idea of like, I'm going to trust this individual person who is like doing labeled sponsored content on a regular basis to give it to me straight. You media guy, get fucked. I was like, all right, well, you can't.
And it's fine if they want to do that, and it's transparent and all that sort of stuff. But you're right. It was that it was that idea that like you can trust individuals and you can't trust. But it's like no, it's everyone's
the big companies are just made up of individuals. Like you know,
and some of those people suck.
Yeah,
and some of those people are righteous, and some of those people really care about the ethics stuff, and some of them it's not so important to them. Yeah, you know, so.
You can be willing to bend to that sort of stuff or not. You could be willing to not bend and end up fucking out on the street. It happens.
Right. Yeah, totally.
But shit, man, I don't know. Whatever. It's yeah. I think that whole audience aspect of it was always very frustrating because it was just like I get a paycheck and no amount of money. Like I don't even know what fucking ads are running outside of the podcast ads, and I don't, because I'm reading them, and none of those are about games, and I don't give a shit about that end of the business, which I'm sure is increasingly a problem to someone. But you know, like at the end of the day, like it was, you know, we were paid to fucking put out shit about games.
You have enough work to do. You can't.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have time to take phone calls about like, now we're putting out our game in 3 months, but this other game's coming out. Could you give that one a low score? Like that was always the one about like, oh, they paid their competitors paid you to score this a 6. Like, that's fucking insane. It's and whatever. I know I've fucking said shit about this before, and it's always one of those things that's just like flabbergasting from a logic perspective. But you know, whatever. At the end of the day, people don't know how these businesses work, and they shouldn't have to enjoy them and all that sort of stuff. It's like I always say, like, you know, people shouldn't have to know how games are made to enjoy video games. You know, it's like, I think there's a level of people who care much deeper about them, and you know, that's how we can get into these conversations about, you know, what are voice actors getting paid and stuff like that. Like I find that very consequential and very meaningful topic to discuss, but you know, most of the people that play that game will have never heard of that.
Yeah, 100%. They wouldn't even have thought of it.
Yeah,
they don't know it's a voice actor. It's just paid on his voice,
right? Or it's like, oh, it sounds a little different this time. I don't know.
Yeah.
My wife is angry as a Bayonetta fan. Once I told her that the voice had changed. I'm
still pissed about fucking Ground Zeroes. I'm not even a huge like David Hayter fan necessarily. Like whatever. But like that was stupid.
Well, you know,
don't change the voices.
Well, it's like, don't change the voices if you're gonna get like fucking 3 lines. You know, like
you're right. Yeah.
I'll say, like
his rates were obviously more than one day.
Right. Yeah. Like did Kiefer show up and fucking tackle a Christmas tree and then record the lines and fucking leave? Like what? So I just think about like how many dollars per second did Kiefer make, and how much money did he make for saying do it when you tell the horse to poop?
Pause. Yeah. Can you say pause one more time?
Pause. No, I can't say it one more time. I gotta go. Use that one. It's fine. Do it.
I have to save the world. I've only got 24 hours, and you jump through a window. And you're like,
right. Yeah. The only I have been thinking about playing Phantom Pain again and all that stuff. I just want to make the horse poop on Solid Snake on the boss over and over again, and while he says do it, because that's really, it's probably the greatest game ever made.
That's gaming.
If we're really breaking it down,
it does feel like a game that I feel like I played 5% of, even though I basically completed it.
Yeah.
It's just so deep. So it's an immersive sim.
It is. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's probably Kojima's best video game.
Yeah,
like if we remove all the Kojima shit,
story,
and whether you like that or you don't, like
art.
It's subjective, but like the just the pure gaming, it's just a fun sandbox to do stuff in. I've been thinking about that game a lot lately. I don't know why. Right. Yeah, I've been thinking about replaying it. I've been thinking about going back and playing Boktai.
I've never played Boktai.
That's the Game Boy game with the sun sensor in it. So like if you were outside the dungeon, like things would change. It was like a vampire kind of thing. And if you would have to, so when you're emulating it, you kind of have to like fake the sun sensor stuff.
Get a little UV lamp or something.
Yeah. But like what a crazy Kojima concept to be like, no, I want to have a solar panel on this that can detect if it's in direct sunlight or not, because that's the game I want to make. Like,
how does he must be the best salesman in the world. How does he get people to agree
up to a point? I mean, if he was the best salesman in the world, he'd probably still be a fucking Konami.
Yeah.
But at some point the mob gets tired of funding your games.
Right. Silent Hill news dropping tomorrow, right? Is that
yes.
Tomorrow?
Silent Hill news.
Yeah, gotcha game.
Right. Yeah, it's a collection based RPG. Let's take our last email here before we break here. Drew from Louisville, Kentucky says, EA hasn't put out an NBA Live game in years, and it's not like that franchise was a competitive offering against NBA 2K. Their NBA Jam revival circa 2010 was generally well received, and the follow-up On Fire edition cleaned up many of the rough edges. Given EA's current lack of an NBA simulation game and the fact that they already made a darn good arcade one, is it time for NBA Jam once again? I think we could all use more Tim Kitzrow yelling Pippen now that Scottie Pippen Jr. plays for the Lakers. Ooh.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I guess. Wow. I think NBA Jam is not a game you can do every year.
Yeah.
It's not an annual franchise. You could do it and then update the rosters. You could try to make it some service game, free-to-play nightmare, and probably really get in the way of all the cool shit. And they'd probably have to do that to make it make sense, because we're just not in an era where EA is going to make a small one-off thing like that anymore.
Can't sell it full price either. It's,
right.
And
I don't know that I wonder if they still hold that license, if they got it free and clear forever, because that was originally, well, I guess the NBA would have owned it, I think is how that worked out, because Midway had it and then Acclaim somehow wrested it from them, and Acclaim made a bunch of games called NBA Jam that were absolutely awful for like the N64 and Saturn and stuff like that. Which is why Midway had to make NBA Showtime and Hang Time and all this other stuff, because they didn't have the rights to the term NBA Jam anymore.
Oh, funny.
So I don't think that would have been a Warner Brothers property that went with them in the Midway sale there. So it probably was with the NBA, and EA negotiated that, and they had to probably negotiate some look and feel stuff maybe with Warner. I don't know how that would have worked. But like,
I bet you're right. I bet it's way more. I bet there's a lot more legal work that needs to be done there, and that probably is part of the reason why it takes those big gaps in time for them to go back to it, Yeah. Has it really been that long though? Was it 2010, he said?
2010.
What?
Yeah.
Biggest employer in Nevada?
2K.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Have you driven by the hangar?
I have.
I'm sure you've been there.
Been around.
Yeah.
I actually haven't been in yet, but I've we've got some friends who live down in Belmarin Keys, and I was looking for office space before I found this place closer to town. But yeah, it's wild. I've lots of the people I've met are like, yeah, I'm a render engineer, or I'm a animator, or whatever.
A lot of them live in Petaluma too, and just commute to Novato. And
I think the mocap thing is in Petaluma.
Yes, there's a mocap thing there somewhere. Probably in that. I bet it's in that business park way out on the east side, past the Jack in the Box.
Yeah, that's a big business park.
Yeah.
There's loads of
out there past the Applebee's.
All the good stuff.
Yeah.
All the places you want to go.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here on the Jeff Gerstmann Show. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. He's Danny O'Dwyer. You can find out more about Danny O'Dwyer online at patreon.com/noclip. Get yourself can people get into this stunt race, this
you're right,
stunt driver beta? Is that, how do people get into that?
Yeah, we're doing it piece by piece, which isn't a money grab. It's because it takes time for me to send people keys. So so I've been doing them tier by tier. So now we're at the $10 patrons. So if you're a $10 patron, you can get, and just DM me and I'll give you a key to Stunt Derby. It's rough around the edges, but it plays. We do tests every Friday. We'll be opening it up to $5 people, I think, next month. Maybe the following, we'll see.
Nice.
But check out NoClip on YouTube. Check out our new channel, NoClip Crew. We're doing a bunch of weird shit on that. It's kind of like a creative playground for us to, I don't know, make shit that we wouldn't put on the documentary channel, like videos about our own game, or hey, I just want to talk about Facing Worlds for 20 minutes. So I did.
I think you should probably do a 2-hour documentary on Facing Worlds.
Facing Worlds.
Yeah.
Do you know we were doing one? I could probably say this. We were talking to Epic about doing one on Unreal Tournament, the sort of reboot one that was the beta that was around.
Yep.
And this was basically around the time that they added the battle royale to Fortnite, and then suddenly emails stopped getting responded to, and I was bet. Like, and then they flushed that UT team and they all went into work on Fortnite, and I was like, that's like such a NoClip situation, as we were talking to Epic about the fucking wrong game.
God, dude, the Fortnite thing is so funny. Just when I think about the number of times I played that game pre-release under hard NDA that were just like, you can't really ever talk about having played this, but you're playing it for judging purposes for E3, and you're doing this and
the building one, is it like the
it was all the building stuff, and then when that came out, so it led to all these people going like, that's not a real game, because and we were perpetrating that because it was fun, but then at some point I had gone and actually played it somewhere in the middle of people going like, Fortnite's not a real game, and I just had to be like, yeah man, totally. Funny. Which is always a shitty position to be in, but I don't know, that mode might as well not be a real game. You still have to pay to play it. Like, who is buying Save the World these days? Like, I'm surprised they haven't added like a bunch of like battle royale suits and perks onto that purchase just to get people to buy it for whatever reason. But
do you think there's like people who like were mad into Counter-Strike and then eventually went back and played Half-Life? You know what I mean? Because like they would have had to. I'm sure there was people who bought or like went to a web cafe to play that and never played Half-Life, and they were like, I'll go check out this Half-Life thing it's stuck to.
Right. Yeah.
So strange.
Crazy. Yeah. That's there'll be some kind of Fortnite documentary someday, I think.
Yeah.
Will be.
Maybe they can do a white label, just like.
Yeah. Watch out. Tim Sweeney will pay you in fucking NFTs or something.
Exactly. He'll buy a forest. He'll buy me a forest or something. What he does? I think he buys forests all around the place.
Right. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Anyway,
got that forest money. It's a whole other level.
Anyway, patreon.com/noclip for Danny stuff. If you want to get an ad-free version of this show, as well as some hot bonuses, the Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame, or join the advisory panel. You want to listen to Game Boys to Men. The latest episode is about 1992 CES. That fucking guy.
There's the feed right there.
Yeah. That's not the official art. I don't know what happened there. Oh, that's the Patreon feed. That's why it is. Right. Yeah, because it just uses the profile image. Right. That makes more sense. Maybe I should have a better profile image.
That's great.
Yes.
I know which one it is.
Yes. Go check that out. Patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, or enjoyyourgaming.com or dopeassvideogames.com. Those all go there too. Take care of yourselves. I'll be back later this week. There's some upcoming video games that I think I can talk about at some point here later in the week, and maybe show some of them even. So I don't know how that's gonna go. I need to go read a bunch of emails about stuff, and we'll see what we're streaming for the rest of this week. I'm gonna go take my antibiotics.
Yeah, don't talk for a little while.
It's weird. It's not a talking sore throat. It's just a swallowing sore throat. Very
Don't
strange.
swallow. Don't swallow.
No, sir. I will. I will not. All right, we're gonna go. We're gonna go.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Bye.
The music's playing now. We're still going out. I can. Yeah. Oh, now.
I'm gonna swallow.
These are the ads you can get ad free here. Get this big gulp. I don't know how to do this since I can't talk to you off stream. I can mute you from the stream, but I can't easily mute me from the stream while still sending to you.
Right,
so no, you're still going out. you're still going out too. So we're just, I don't know, we're just still here talking over the music, and really, I should probably just let this play out here. I'm just gonna fade the music here so I can stop the recording.